My Emotional Support Demon by Wynn, Valentine. First edition published by I2I Hype, LLC 2025. Copyright 2025 by Wynn, Valentine. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, stored, or transmitted in any form by any means, electronic, mechanical, photocopying, recording, scanning, or otherwise without written permission from the publisher. It is illegal to copy this book, post it to a website, or distribute it by any other means without permission. This novel is entirely a work of fiction. The names, characters, and incidents portrayed in it are the work of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events or localities, is entirely coincidental. Wynn, Valentine asserts the moral right to be identified as the author of this work. Designations used by companies to distinguish their products are often claimed as trademarks. All brand names and product names used in this book and on its cover are trade names, service marks, trademarks, and registered trademarks of their respective owners. The publishers and the book are not associated with any product or vendor mentioned in this book. None of the companies referenced within the book have endorsed the book. Book cover by Dana Sacco. Chapter 1: The Accidental Summoning. Junie Bloom's therapy journal wasn't supposed to be bound in demon summoning leather. The Etsy listing had specifically advertised vegan-friendly pleather with mild enchantment for self-reflection. Yet here she was, staring at a very tall, very confused demon in a pastel blue cardigan, who had materialized in her living room while she was journaling about her work anxiety. "Thank you for contacting Infernal Support Services," the demon said automatically, his horns shifting from obsidian black to a gentle lavender. "My name is Malachi. How may I assist you in processing your emotions today?" Junie blinked behind her thick-rimmed glasses, her purple hair falling into her eyes as she tilted her head. I'm sorry, what? Oh dear. Malachi adjusted his cardigan, which had tiny embroidered pitchforks along the hem. "This isn't the standard summoning circle, is it?" He peered at the journal in her lap. "That's definitely not regulation pentagram stationery." "It's from Etsy," Junie mumbled, watching in fascination as Malachi's horns shifted to a concerned shade of blue. "Ah, the eternal realm of chaotic crafting." He pulled out a tablet that appeared to be made of brimstone but had a suspiciously apple-like logo. "I'll need to file an interdimensional customer service ticket about this. Could you rate your emotional distress on a scale of 1 to eternal damnation?" Before Junie could answer, her apartment's resident ghost materialized in the corner. "The throw pillows still don't match the curtains," it announced critically, then noticed Malachi. "Oh, finally. Someone with a sense of interior design. Those horns really bring out the architectural features of the room." "Thank you," Malachi replied automatically. "Your feedback is important to us." Junie's phone buzzed. It was a text from Pixel, which she knew meant either "there's a demon in your apartment" or "the office coffee machine is sentient again." "Look," Junie said, standing up and clutching her planner like a shield. "I have a very important presentation tomorrow about implementing cross-species sensitivity training at Ever After Industries, and I really don't have time for—" She stopped as Malachi sneezed, releasing a cloud of iridescent butterflies into her living room. They settled on her collection of stress-baked muffins, which immediately began glowing with truth spell energy. "Sorry," he said, pulling out a handkerchief embroidered with "Hell's Customer Service Department, we're here for eternity. I'm processing your anxiety. Would you say your stress levels are more apocalyptic or just end-of-quarter review?" "I can't deal with this right now," Junie muttered, and as her emotions spiked, her laptop floated off the desk and transformed into a chocolate cake. Malachi's horns turned a delighted pink. "Ah, undiagnosed emotion-based powers. My specialty." "Well, not exactly my specialty. I got a C+ in power management at Underworldly University, but I did attend the seminar." The ghost drifted closer. "The cake really pulls the room together." But you should consider a different frosting color. Junie sank back onto her couch, watching as Malachi pulled out a collection of labeled jars from his messenger bag, which appeared to be made from ethical dragon leather. The labels were indeed written in demonic Comic Sans. Now then, he said cheerfully, let's start processing those emotions. I should warn you that sadness manifests as glitter in my realm, and I'm legally required to inform you that any joy I absorb may result in spontaneous flower growth. As if on cue, a small patch of daisies sprouted from Junie's coffee table. I'm going to be late for work, she said faintly. Not to worry. Malachi brightened. I have extensive experience in corporate environments. Did you know Hell's organizational structure is surprisingly similar to modern offices? Except our water cooler actually contains the tears of the damned, much better for hydration. The ghost nodded approvingly. Better than your tap water, dear. The minerals are all wrong for the kitchen's feng shui. Junie's phone buzzed again. No, Pixel, I am not keeping him, Junie typed back, even as Malachi began organizing her emotional state into color-coded jars, humming what sounded suspiciously like a corporate wellness seminar theme song. But as she watched him carefully decant her work anxiety into a swirling purple mist, labeled Pre-Presentation Panic, Grade A, she couldn't help noticing how his horns had taken on a warm, gentle golden glow, or how his careful movements spoke of genuine concern rather than demonic malice. Your aura indicates elevated stress levels, he noted, checking something on his brimstone tablet. Would you like to schedule a follow-up session, or should I file this under ongoing existential crisis? Before Junie could answer, her balcony herbs all bloomed at once, filling the apartment with the scent of lavender and what might have been peace of mind. She was definitely going to have to update her journal about this. Chapter 2: The Supernatural Office. Junie rushed through the ever-shifting corridors of Ever After Industries, her enchanted planner buzzing with unread notifications, and Malachi trailing behind her like an enthusiastic shadow. His horns had taken on a frantic orange hue that matched her stress levels perfectly. You really don't need to come with me, she hissed, dodging a floating memo that had folded itself into an origami swan. I have enough to deal with without explaining why I have a demon following me around. Actually, according to the Infernal Support Services Handbook, Section 7.3, Paragraph B, I'm contractually obligated to maintain proximity until your emotional equilibrium is restored. Malachi consulted his tablet, narrowly avoiding a collision with a troll from accounting. Also, your anxiety is making my horns itch. The office layout had decided to rearrange itself again, and Junie found herself facing the break room instead of the conference room. The vending machine hummed ominously, its display cycling through today's emotional offerings: mild contentment, sugar-free; temporary confidence, now with extra sparkle; and productive panic, management approved. Junie. Pixel appeared from behind a potted plant that might have been carnivorous. A string of emojis floated above her head like a technological halo. Yes, I know I'm late for the presentation, Junie groaned. The ghost wouldn't let me leave until we had a full discussion about throw pillow coordination, and then my laptop turned into cake. A very aesthetically pleasing cake, Malachi chimed in helpfully. His horns shifted to a proud magenta. Pixel's eyes widened as she took in Malachi's presence, another string of emojis materializing. We're not, Junie spluttered, but was interrupted by Barry Mittens sprinting past them on all fours, having apparently transformed mid-meeting again. His tie was still perfectly knotted despite his current Foxian state. The presentation. Junie remembered with horror. I need to? Allow me to assist. Malachi pulled out one of his emotion-collecting jars, this one swirling with confident golden mist. A touch of borrowed confidence, perhaps? Only slightly used, from a very successful Sphinx's job interview. Before Junie could protest, the jar's contents had dissolved into the air around her, and she felt her spine straightening with newfound assurance. Unfortunately, this also caused all the office supplies in a 10-foot radius to start doing the cha-cha. Oops, Malachi's horns flushed an embarrassed pink. Minor side effect. The Sphinx was also a dance instructor. A ghostly figure drifted through the wall, trailing Excel formulas behind her like ethereal ribbons. The infamous accounting ghost, looking particularly translucent today, paused to admire Barry the Fox, who was now hiding under a desk and organizing paper clips by size. Equals if love greater than O than ELSE appeared in a spectral spreadsheet above her head. Oh, this is better than the office internet soap opera, pixels floating emojis declared. Junie checked her watch, which had helpfully transformed its face to display panic now in flashing letters. The presentation is in 5 minutes, and I don't even know where the conference room is today. Not to worry. Malachi brightened, his horns glowing with problem-solving determination. As a certified emotional support demon, I'm equipped with interdimensional GPS. The conference room is that way. He pointed to what appeared to be a solid wall. That's a wall, Junie stated flatly. Technically, it's a quantum possibility of a corridor, Malachi corrected, adjusting his cardigan. The building's just being shy. Have you tried asking it nicely? To Junie's amazement, when Malachi politely knocked on the wall and whispered, "Excuse me, we're running late for a very important meeting about cross-species sensitivity training," the wall melted away to reveal the conference room. Inside, her competitor for the promotion, Marina Songweaver, the presentation singing siren, was already setting up, her PowerPoint slides practically glowing with maritime-themed transitions. "You've got this," Malachi whispered, and promptly sneezed another cloud of butterflies. They settled into formation, spelling out "You're gonna crush it" in iridescent wings. Junie took a deep breath, straightened her blazer, and stepped forward, only to realize that the borrowed confidence was making her float 6 inches off the ground. Minor side effect, Malachi coughed. The Sphinx was also part air elemental. The next hour would certainly be interesting. Chapter 3, The PowerPoint of No Return. The conference room hummed with supernatural energy as Junie hovered 6 inches above her chair, trying to appear nonchalant about her newfound levitation. Marina Songweaver's presentation materials sparkled with actual sea spray, and somewhere in the back of the room, Barry the Fox was still compulsively organizing paper clips. "Before we begin," droned Theodore Grimsworth, the department head whose species remained a mystery but whose dedication to bureaucracy was legendary, "has everyone filled out their interdimensional feedback forms in triplicate?" Malachi, who had squeezed himself into a corner wearing what he claimed was his professional observation cardigan, now featuring tiny embroidered motivational quotes that actually motivated, raised his hand. Point of order. According to the Otherworldly Workers' Rights Act, Section 13, feedback forms must now include an emoji option for nonverbal entities. The accounting ghost materialized through the projector screen, creating a brief PowerPoint aurora borealis, and nodded emphatically. "Equals some appreciation," floated above her translucent head. Junie's borrowed confidence made the presentation remote do a little dance in her hand. "I'll begin with our first slide." In the depths of corporate policy, Marina burst into song, her voice carrying the hypnotic rhythm of crashing waves. The potted plant in the corner swayed in appreciation. "Actually," Junie interrupted, surprising herself with her Sphinx-borrowed boldness, "I have some real-time data to share." She gestured to her floating laptop, which thankfully had decaked itself during the morning chaos. The screen flickered to life, displaying her meticulously prepared slides about implementing sensitivity training for everything from werewolves with social anxiety to vampires with imposter syndrome. But as she clicked through, she noticed something odd. Her bullet points were rearranging themselves into heart shapes whenever she glanced at Malachi. "As you can see from this graph," Junie continued professionally, ignoring both her persistent hovering and the way Malachi's horns had turned a soft, rosy pink, "our current training programs have a significant gap in addressing the unique needs of our supernatural staff members." "Like the fact that Barry keeps eating the staples?" someone whispered from the back. The fox in question looked up guiltily, office supplies falling from his muzzle. Precisely, Junie nodded, warming to her topic. We need to create an inclusive environment that acknowledges these unique workplace challenges. Malachi, apparently processing the room's collective nervous energy, began to hiccup rainbow bubbles. Each one contained a tiny motivational scene: a dragon learning to use a standing desk, a zombie practicing self-care, a phoenix filing for flame damage insurance. Theodore Grimsworth's eyebrows, all 7 of them, furrowed. And how do you propose we implement these changes, Ms. Bloom? This was her moment. Junie took a deep breath, feeling the borrowed confidence surge through her. Unfortunately, this caused her to float even higher, but she decided to work with it, using her new vantage point to command the room. I propose a 3-phase plan, she announced, as her slides shifted to accommodate her elevation. First, we establish enchanted safe spaces for supernatural-specific needs. For example, a meditation room with gravity options for our levitation-prone colleagues. She shot a knowing look at herself. The accounting ghost clapped silently, sending sparks of spectral formulas through the air. Equals if impressed equals true then ELSE. Second, Junie continued, we implement cross-species mentorship programs. Imagine the possibilities. Vampires teaching time management across multiple centuries, werewolves leading workshops on work-life balance during full moons. Morena opened her mouth, presumably to burst into another persuasive sea shanty, but was interrupted by an unexpected spark of magic from Junie's direction. The borrowed confidence was interacting with her latent emotion-based powers, causing her presentation to transform into a 3D hologram complete with tiny illusions acting out each scenario. Malachi's horns brightened to an impressed gold, sending out little sparkles that made the hologram figures dance. Now that's what I call an engaging presentation format, he whispered too loudly, still hiccuping rainbow bubbles. And finally, Junie pressed on, trying not to notice how the hologram figures were now pair skating whenever she and Malachi made eye contact. We establish a comprehensive magical accommodations policy. No more incidents like last week's unicorn in IT, who kept accidentally turning all our emails into poetry. The iambic pentameter was rather pleasant, Pixel's emojis commented from the doorway, where she had materialized to watch. Theodore Grimsworth's expression remained unreadable, possibly because his face had briefly transformed into a contemporary art installation. Very innovative, Ms. Bloom. Though I do have concerns about the budget for all these accommodations. Actually, Malachi chimed in, his customer service instincts apparently overwhelming his observer status. According to the latest hellish healthcare guidelines, emotional support services are now covered under interdimensional insurance. I took the liberty of running a cost-benefit analysis. He pulled out a scroll that unfurled dramatically, trailing sparkles and small demonic footnotes. Junie shot him a grateful look, causing several paper clips to spontaneously transform into tiny copper hearts. Barry the Fox immediately began organizing them by size and emotional intensity. The presentation concluded with an unexpected magical flourish, as Junie's residual anxiety manifested as a shower of glitter, promptly absorbed by Malachi's horn glow, and her borrowed confidence finally wore off, leaving her to descend gracefully back to ground level. Well, Theodore Grimsworth announced, his face resolving back into its usual configuration, this has certainly been illuminating. We'll need to review the proposal in detail, of course. Perhaps during next week's lunar eclipse meeting? As the room began to clear out, Morena gliding past with a melodious huff, Junie felt simultaneously exhausted and exhilarated. Her laptop chose this moment to partially cake itself again, the keyboard now made of buttercream frosting. That went really well. Malachi beamed, his horns cycling through happy colors like a supernatural mood ring. Although I should probably mention that borrowed confidence has a slight crash period. You might want to brace yourself for. Junie's knees buckled as the confidence exodus hit her all at once. Malachi caught her smoothly, which would have been more professional if it hadn't caused every electronic device in the room to start playing love songs. The accounting ghost quickly possessed the speakers to change the playlist to something more office appropriate, though her choice of just the two of us seemed suspiciously pointed. "Thanks," Junie mumbled into Malachi's cardigan, which now featured tiny embroidered hearts alongside its motivational quotes. "For everything. All part of the service." Malachi replied automatically, then added more softly, "Though this might be slightly outside my customer support certification." They stayed like that for a moment, until Barry the Fox's organized paper clip hearts began floating in a choreographed dance around them, and Pixel's emoji commentary became too elaborate to ignore. Junie straightened up, straightening her blazer. "Right? Well, I should probably go file those interdimensional feedback forms. In triplicate. With emoji options." "Of course," Malachi nodded professionally, though his horns were still cycling through romcom colors. "Would you like me to process any residual presentation anxiety? I promise only minimal butterfly production this time." As they walked out, the accounting ghost's final spreadsheet formula floated behind them. Equals sumif love underscore in underscore the underscore rare equals true. Chapter 4: Coffee, Chaos, and Celestial Customer Service. The day after her presentation, Junie found herself in the ever-shifting break room, staring at a coffee machine that was definitely not company standard. The sleek chrome device had appeared overnight, bearing an ominous label that read, "Heavenly Brews and Infernal Views, Beta Testing Location." "I wouldn't trust anything that says beta testing in a supernatural office," Pixel's floating emojis warned. Junie jabbed at the touchscreen anyway, desperate for caffeine. The machine hummed to life with an ethereal glow, its display flickering between angelic and demonic script. "Please select your moral alignment before proceeding," the screen prompted. "Is there no option for just trying to get through Monday?" Junie muttered. Actually, Malachi materialized beside her, today's cardigan featuring tiny embroidered coffee cups that steamed actual vapor. According to the latest Celestial Infernal Commerce regulations, neutral alignment beverages require a signed waiver and proof of existential crisis. The coffee machine pinged in agreement, dispensing a stack of forms printed on what looked suspiciously like cloud matter. "I just want coffee," Junie groaned, her frustration causing several nearby mugs to start performing an interpretive dance routine. "Perhaps I can help." Malachi's horns glowed a helpful periwinkle as he approached the machine. "I did complete the Infernal Barista Certification course. Granted, it was mostly focused on brewing drinks that capture the essence of eternal torment, but the customer service principles are universal." He pressed a few buttons, and the machine's display transformed into a swirling vortex of coffee-related possibilities. "Let's see, how about a middling mortal mocha with extra enchantment?" The machine whirred ominously, then dispensed a drink that changed colors with Junie's mood and had tiny marshmallows floating in the shape of consciousness-expanding mandalas. "That's actually perfect," Junie admitted, taking a sip. The warmth spread through her, causing her hair to float weightlessly for a moment while taste-matching aurora borealis colors danced around her head. "Customer satisfaction is my eternal purpose," Malachi beamed, though his horns flushed a shy pink that suggested perhaps professional dedication wasn't his only motivation. Their moment was interrupted by Barry skittering into the break room in fox form, clutching a spreadsheet in his teeth. The paper trailed formula-filled sparkles that spelled out an urgent message from the accounting ghost, equals emergency underscore meeting now. "What's happening?" Junie asked, her coffee swirling with concerned amber swirls. Barry transformed back just long enough to explain, "Corporate representatives from upstairs," he gestured skyward, "and downstairs are here for a surprise audit. Something about investigating unauthorized interdimensional customer service relationships?" Malachi's horns went pale lavender with worry. "Oh dear. That might be about me. I may have forgotten to file Form 666B, Declaration of Intent to Provide Extended Emotional Support Services to a Mortal." Junie's coffee turned an anxious deep blue. What happens if they find out? Best case scenario? Celestial sensitivity training and a strongly worded memo. Malachi fidgeted with his cardigan buttons. Worst case? They reassign me to Hell's DMV department. Not the DMV. Junie gasped, her distress causing several potted plants to sprout stress flowers. The Department of Malevolent Vibrations, Malachi clarified. We make people feel like they're constantly forgetting something important, but can't remember what. Pixel's emojis turned frantic. Right, Junie nodded, setting down her mood-shifting coffee. We need a plan. Barry, can you delay them? Maybe reorganize their paperwork by emotional resonance or something? The fox nodded eagerly, already sorting a nearby stack of forms by their aura colors. Pixel, can you get the building's layout to cooperate? We need somewhere to hide Malachi until we figure this out. A string of determined emojis appeared. The walls around them began to shift and ripple, responding to Pixel's technological persuasion. A door materialized, labeled, "Definitely not a secret room for hiding unauthorized emotional support demons." That might be a bit obvious, Junie sighed. Actually, Malachi perked up, his horns taking on a thoughtful blue glow. I might have a better idea. But you're not going to like it. The corporate representatives would be arriving any minute, and Junie could feel her chance at promotion slipping away, along with her grip on workplace normalcy, if such a thing had ever existed at Ever After Industries in the first place. Chapter 5: Divine Intervention and Demonic Paperwork. Your plan is to stuff me in the vending machine? Junie stared at Malachi in disbelief. Not stuff, temporarily relocate, Malachi corrected, his horns flickering with nervous sparkles. The emotional snack dispensary exists in a quasi-dimensional space. It's technically neither heaven nor hell's jurisdiction. The vending machine hummed in agreement, its display now showing, today's special, refuge from celestial infernal bureaucracy, sugar-free. Before Junie could protest further, the elevator at the end of the hall chimed with an otherworldly tone that somehow managed to sound both heavenly and hellish simultaneously. A wave of perfect order swept through the office. Papers aligned themselves at exact right angles, dust motes arranged themselves by size and moral purity, and Barry's organized paper clips formed a perfect Fibonacci spiral. Quick! Junie whispered, helping Malachi squeeze into the vending machine's dispensary slot. His cardigan today was perhaps not the best choice for covert operations, as its embroidered motivational quotes kept offering helpful suggestions like, hang in there, and tight spaces are just opportunities for personal growth. The machine obligingly expanded its interior dimensions, though Malachi still had to curl up next to the bottled bliss, now with less existential dread section. Remember, he whispered, if anyone asks, I'm just a new flavor of emotional support snack. What flavor could possibly explain the horns? Junie hissed back. Spicy enlightenment? Malachi suggested, just as the elevator doors opened. The celestial infernal audit team that emerged was a study in contrasts. The heavenly representative, Angelica Brightsworth, gleamed with such bureaucratic perfection that looking directly at her perfectly filed paperwork risked temporary blindness. Her demonic counterpart, Dex Thornwhisper, somehow managed to make a three-piece suit look chaotic, with a tie that appeared to be actively violating several laws of physics. Good morning, Angelica's voice chimed like perfectly organized wind chimes. We're here to conduct a routine inspection of all unauthorized cross-realm emotional support services. Emphasis on unauthorized, Dex added with a grin that contained several more teeth than strictly necessary. We've had reports of unsanctioned joy distribution and non-regulation comfort provision. Junie tried to look innocent, which was challenging when the coffee in her cup had started spelling out, stay calm in tiny marshmallow letters. Everything here is completely normal and properly authorized, she assured them, just as Barry the Fox zipped past with a mouthful of color-coded incident reports. The accounting ghost chose this moment to materialize through a filing cabinet, trailing a spectral spreadsheet that read, equals if panic equals true then ELSE. We'll need to see all emotional support documentation, Angelica announced, producing a golden clipboard that radiated righteous organization, including any records of demon-mortal workplace interactions. From inside the vending machine, Malachi sneezed quietly, producing a small cloud of anxiety butterflies that tried to disguise themselves as protein bars. Of course, Junie said brightly, perhaps too brightly, as several nearby office plants began to photosynthesize enthusiasm. Let me just check our records. Pixel, could you? Pixel's emoji response floated by, followed quickly by 404_error_records_not_found. Perhaps we should start with a full inspection of the premises, Dex suggested, his briefcase growling softly. Standard procedure for cases of suspected unauthorized emotional support activities. Junie felt her panic rising, causing the vending machine to rattle ominously. Inside, Malachi appeared to be stress knitting with spare emotional support threads, his horns cycling through worried pastels. Just then, Theodore Grimsworth materialized from whatever dimension he called home, his 7 eyebrows arranged in perfect bureaucratic neutrality. Ah, our celestial infernal auditors. I assume you filed Form ETR 789 for interdimensional inspection intent? Angelica's perfect posture faltered slightly. Form ETR 789? I thought that was only required for full lunar cycle inspections. Actually, Junie heard herself say, channeling Malachi's customer service expertise, according to the latest supernatural workplace guidelines, Section 13.4, all cross-realm inspections now require both ETR 789 and its accompanying lunar phase variance documentation. The vending machine vibrated with what might have been suppressed proud giggles. Dex's tie writhed uncertainly. Surely there's a hellish loophole. Oh no, Junie continued, warming to her subject. After the great paperwork revolution of 2021, all loopholes must be pre-approved by the Joint Committee for Bureaucratic Chaos and Order. You did submit your loophole application in triplicate, didn't you? Barry, who had transformed back to human form, helpfully produced a stack of forms that seemed to radiate smug protocol. These would be the required documents, he explained, then added innocently. They need to be filled out in chronological order, but time moves differently in each section. The accounting ghost contributed a haunting spreadsheet titled Temporal Paradox Error Log. Angelica's halo flickered with bureaucratic distress. Perhaps we should reschedule this audit. After proper documentation has been filed, of course. And loopholes properly registered, Dex agreed, his briefcase now whimpering in regulatory confusion. As the audit team retreated, muttering about interdimensional paperwork requirements, Junie sagged against the vending machine in relief. The door popped open, dispensing one slightly rumpled emotional support demon. That, Malachi declared, his horns glowing with admiration as he extracted himself from between the contentment crunch and serenity snaps, was the most beautiful display of bureaucratic warfare I've ever seen. Junie felt herself blush, causing several nearby documents to fold themselves into origami hearts. I learned from the best customer service demon in the business. About that, Malachi straightened his cardigan, which had acquired several new motivational quotes during its time in the vending machine. I should probably file that Form 666B now. And maybe we could discuss it over coffee? The non-existential crisis kind? The vending machine helpfully dispensed 2 cups of something labeled First Date Frappé with extra flutter. Barry the Fox began arranging paper clips into tiny fireworks displays while Pixel's emojis spelled out. Junie took one of the cups, watching as the liquid swirled with possibilities. I'd like that. Just maybe not from the beta test coffee machine. Agreed, Malachi nodded, his horns glowing a soft rose gold. I know a great interdimensional cafe. Their scones only turn into doves half the time. Chapter 6, The Interdimensional Cafe Date. The cafe, the liminal latte, existed in what Malachi called the space between spaces, which apparently meant it was wedged somewhere between reality and a really good cup of coffee. Junie stepped through what had appeared to be an ordinary coat closet at Ever After Industries, to find herself in a cozy establishment where the laws of physics were more like polite suggestions. Coffee cups floated lazily through the air, refilling themselves from brass steampunk-inspired dispensers that occasionally hiccuped steam in the shape of love poems. The walls seemed to be made of shifting watercolors, and the ceiling was an ever-changing kaleidoscope of constellation maps from various dimensions. "Table for two?" chirped a pixie waitress whose wings left trails of coffee-scented sparkles. "We have a lovely spot by the window overlooking the void of infinite possibilities." "Perfect," Malachi beamed, his horns glowing a pleased copper as he pulled out Junie's chair, which proceeded to give her a supportive pat on the back. "Our special today is the paradox pastry," the pixie continued, producing a menu that unfolded like an origami universe. "It exists and doesn't exist simultaneously, but the flavor is to die for. Literally in some cases, but we have excellent resurrection insurance." Junie settled into her seat, watching as her napkin folded itself into an increasingly complex series of woodland creatures. "Maybe something less existential? I'm still processing the whole unauthorized emotional support situation." "Of course." The pixie's wings chimed like tiny coffee bells. "May I suggest our reality-adjacent raspberry scones? Only a 15% chance of spontaneous transformation into songbirds." Before Junie could respond, a familiar ghostly presence drifted through the wall, trailing celestial calculations. The accounting ghost had apparently followed them, accompanied by a very determined-looking fox carrying a briefcase in his teeth. "Equal stalking _mode_engaged," floated above the ghost's translucent head. "Very." Junie hissed. "What are you doing here?" The fox dropped the briefcase, transformed just long enough to say, "Conducting a very important audit of interdimensional dating protocols," then went back to vulpine form, his tie somehow still impeccable. Malachi's horns flushed a flustered pink. "Is this a date? I mean, technically, according to Form 666B, subsection Romantic Entanglements, there's a required waiting period for emotional support demons, too." "Oh, look, scones!" Junie interrupted, as a plate of pastries materialized, each one humming a different love song from the 1980s. A small paper airplane made from what appeared to be an interdimensional memo landed on their table. Junie unfolded it to find a string of pixels emojis, followed by Operation Cupid status, in progress. Did everyone follow us here?" Junie groaned, though she couldn't help smiling as Malachi's cardigan spontaneously embroidered itself with tiny hearts that beat in time with the scone songs. "I suppose supernatural office romance requires a proper audience," Malachi mused, his horns shifting to a contemplative blue-violet. A nearby sugar bowl began dispensing crystals that formed tiny constellation patterns on the tablecloth. Junie took a sip of her coffee, which tasted like liquid starlight with hints of caramel. "Is that in the employee handbook? All interdimensional relationships must be thoroughly documented by at least one ghost, a werfox, and an emoji-speaking tech witch." The accounting ghost's spectral spreadsheet updated, equals relationship _status pending _approval. "Actually," Malachi brightened, pulling out his brimstone tablet, "according to the latest infernal HR guidelines, workplace romances involving emotional support demons require—" He stopped abruptly, horns flushing pink. "Not that I'm assuming this is. I mean..." A scone chose that moment to transform into a dove, cooing what sounded suspiciously like "Can't Help Falling in Love," before dissolving into a shower of raspberry-scented sparkles. Barry the fox had somehow acquired a tiny notepad and was methodically documenting their interaction, occasionally pausing to alphabetize the cafe's sugar packets. "Perhaps we should address the demon in the room," Junie suggested, watching as her coffee rippled with iridescent hearts. "What exactly happens now that the audit crisis is averted?" Malachi's cardigan fidgeted nervously, its motivational quotes rearranging themselves into relationship advice. "Well, technically speaking, I should return to Hell's customer service department for reassignment. But..." His horns swirled with a complex mixture of colors Junie had never seen before. "But," she prompted, trying to ignore the way the cafe's walls were painting themselves in romantic sunset hues. "But I may have submitted an application for permanent earthly assignment," he admitted. as Ever After Industries' first official corporate emotional support demon. The paperwork is already in triplicate, and I included extra glitter for the Hell HR department. They're suckers for proper presentation. The pixie waitress fluttered by, leaving a trail of coffee-scented sparkles that arranged themselves into tiny fireworks. More scones for the happy couple? These ones are enchanted with mutual pining resolution spell, very popular with supernatural workplace romances. We're not, Junie began just as Malachi said. That would be, they both stopped, looking at each other as the cafe's ambient magic hummed with possibility. The accounting ghost's spreadsheet practically vibrated with excitement. Equals if, kiss underscore imminent equals true then ELSE. Pixel's latest emoji message airplane landed in Junie's coffee. You know, Junie said carefully, watching Malachi's horns cycle through every shade of rose gold imaginable. Having a corporate emotional support demon could really help with my promotion case. Cross-species sensitivity training and all that. Oh yes, very professional reasoning, Malachi nodded seriously, though his cardigan was now embroidering itself with tiny hearts that beat in perfect synchronization with Junie's pulse. Purely business-related motivations. Absolutely, Junie agreed, even as her latent powers caused sugar cubes to dance around them in a heart-shaped pattern. Nothing to do with the way your horns glow when you smile, or how you organize emotions in color-coded jars or... She didn't get to finish, because Malachi had leaned across the table and kissed her, causing every pastry in the cafe to simultaneously transform into singing doves. Barry dropped his notepad in surprise. The accounting ghost's spreadsheet erupted in digital confetti, and somewhere in the distance, they could hear Pixel's emojis setting off celebratory fireworks. When they finally pulled apart, Malachi's horns were creating their own aurora borealis, and Junie's coffee had turned into liquid diamonds that sang love songs in perfect harmony. I suppose, Malachi said softly, adjusting his now thoroughly romantic cardigan, we'll need to file Form 777L, Declaration of Intent to Pursue Cross-Realm Romance while maintaining professional emotional support standards. Junie laughed, causing several nearby teacups to sprout wings and perform an aerial ballet. Is there a form for everything? Oh yes, Malachi grinned, his horns still sparkling like a supernatural disco ball. But I think this might be my favorite paperwork yet. Chapter 7, Office Hours and Other Enchantments. The return to Ever After Industries proved more complicated than anticipated, primarily because the building had redecorated itself in celebration. Every surface sparkled with enchanted confetti, and the ever-shifting corridors had arranged themselves into a heart-shaped layout that made navigation nearly impossible. I don't remember the break room being through the ceiling before, Junie observed, watching as her coffee mug from the liminal latte continued to hum love songs in perfect harmony with the office's ambient magic. The architecture appears to be experiencing romantic enthusiasm, Malachi noted, his horn still glowing like a supernatural mood ring stuck on smitten. His cardigan had upgraded itself to include tiny animated scenes of their cafe kiss, complete with miniature singing pastry doves. The accounting ghost drifted through a nearby wall, her spectral spreadsheets now decorated with digital hearts, equals workplace underscore romance underscore status approved. I suppose we should tell Theodore Grimsworth about the new corporate emotional support position, Junie suggested, trying to maintain professional composure, even as her happiness caused several office plants to burst into bloom, their flowers arranging themselves into poetry. Barry the Fox scampered past, still dutifully documenting everything in his tiny notebook. He'd organized his observations into color-coded sections with tabs labeled Horns and Happiness, Cardigan Chronicles, and Interdimensional PDA Protocols. A string of Pixel's emojis floated by overhead, followed by memo underscore and underscore progress, office romance announcement with sparkles. Perhaps we should, Junie began, but was interrupted by Theodore Grimsworth materializing directly in front of them, his 7 eyebrows arranged in what might have been approval, or possibly mild indigestion. Ah, Ms. Bloom, Mr. Goodfellow, he intoned, his form flickering between various states of corporate existence. I see the interdimensional paperwork has been filed. In triplicate. With appropriate glitter allocation. Malachi straightened his tie, which had begun to emit supportive pheromones. Yes, sir. I've included all necessary forms for permanent earthly assignment, including Form XO 143. Recognition of romantic entanglement's impact on workplace productivity. Very thorough, Grimsworth nodded, producing a stack of papers that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Though you'll need to fill out these additional forms regarding the office building's current, emotional state. Junie glanced around at the practically swooning architecture. The water cooler had started dispensing sparkling rose water, and the vending machine's display now read, "Today's special, happily ever after, now with reduced paperwork." A paper airplane landed on her desk, this one folded from what appeared to be an interdimensional wedding magazine subscription card. She unfolded it to find Pixel's latest update. That's getting a bit ahead of things, Junie muttered, though she couldn't help smiling as Malachi's horns flushed a delighted pink. I believe, Theodore Grimsworth continued, his form settling into something vaguely humanoid, this calls for a staff meeting. The break room should be accessible through that potted plant in approximately 3 minutes. The plant in question perked up, its leaves rustling with bureaucratic importance. The break room materialized exactly 3 minutes later, though it had somehow acquired mood lighting and what appeared to be a small chamber orchestra composed entirely of enchanted office supplies. Paper clips played tiny violins, while staplers provided percussion, all conducted by a particularly enthusiastic rubber plant. Is that Love is in the Air being performed by office supplies? Junie whispered to Malachi as they entered. Actually, it's the celestial infernal version. Love is in the administrative ether, Malachi explained, his horns creating a soft spotlight effect. Much more bureaucratically appropriate. The room had expanded to accommodate the entire staff, though physics seemed to be taking a coffee break. The accounting ghost floated near the ceiling, spreadsheets now displaying romance statistics with tiny animated hearts. Barry the Fox had arranged all the chairs in perfect symmetry according to their emotional resonance, while simultaneously documenting everything in his ever-expanding notebook. Pixel materialized next to the new coffee machine, which was dispensing drinks that matched everyone's romantic auras. Her emojis formed a running commentary. Theodore Grimsworth materialized at the front of the room, his 7 eyebrows arranging themselves into what might have been a supportive expression. As you're all aware, thanks to the building's rather enthusiastic redecorating efforts, we have some organizational changes to discuss. The walls blushed a delicate pink. First, Grimsworth continued, producing a scroll that unfolded through several dimensions, I'm pleased to announce that Ms. Bloom's cross-species sensitivity training proposal has been approved, with the addition of a permanent corporate emotional support department. A rain of celebratory sticky notes fell from the ceiling, each one bearing a different motivational quote in Demon Comic Sans. Furthermore, he added, as his form flickered between various states of corporate existence, Mr. Goodfellow's permanent earthly assignment has been approved by both upper and lower management, pending completion of Forms 777L through 999Z, with appropriate interdimensional notarization. Malachi's cardigan spontaneously embroidered itself with tiny fireworks displays, while his horns cycled through every shade of joy in the known spectrum, and several from parallel dimensions. Of course, Grimsworth noted, producing another stack of forms that seemed to hum with bureaucratic importance, there are some logistical matters to address. The building's current emotional state, for instance. The water cooler sighed dreamily, dispensing what appeared to be liquid moonlight with a hint of raspberry. And the vending machine's recent tendency to dispense relationship advice, along with emotional support snacks. Love is like a perfectly filed form, the machine's display proclaimed. Sweet, organized, and occasionally requiring interdimensional notarization. Junie felt her cheeks warm as several nearby plants sprouted heart-shaped flowers. We'll work on maintaining a more professional atmosphere, she promised, just as Malachi's horns created a miniature aurora borealis in response to her proximity. "See that you do," Grimsworth nodded, though 3 of his eyebrows were definitely smirking. "Now, about the new department's budget allocation." The meeting continued in this vein, a peculiar blend of corporate protocol and supernatural romance that somehow felt perfectly natural in the enchanted offices of Ever After Industries. Barry took detailed notes while periodically transforming between fox and human forms, his tie remaining impeccable in either state. The accounting ghost's spreadsheets grew increasingly elaborate, now including projected happiness metrics and a cost-benefit analysis of workplace romance expressed entirely in heart emojis. As Grimsworth detailed the new organizational structure, Junie felt Malachi's hand slip into hers under the table. A small shower of sparkles rained down from his horns, causing nearby paperclips to form themselves into tiny hearts. "I suppose this means I'll need a proper office," Malachi whispered, his cardigan now displaying scrolling text that read, "Officially employed and officially in love." "The building might have some ideas about that," Junie whispered back, noting how the walls were already sketching floor plans in shimmering gold. Pixel's latest emoji update floated by, followed by Office_Renovation X, Romance Edition. The meeting concluded with what might have been a record amount of paperwork, though the forms kept trying to fold themselves into origami lovebirds. As the staff filed out, navigating the building's newly romantic architecture, Junie and Malachi lingered in the break room. "So," Junie said, watching as her coffee cup performed a small waltz with his, "corporate emotional support demon, huh?" "With full benefits," Malachi nodded, his horns creating a soft halo of light. "Including interdimensional dental and eternal soul insurance." "And the relationship paperwork?" "Filed, notarized, and glitter-enhanced," he confirmed, pulling her closer as the office supplies orchestra struck up another love song. "Though there might be some additional forms required for this." As he leaned in to kiss her, the building sighed contentedly, rearranging itself into its most romantic configuration yet. Somewhere in the distance, Barry the Fox was probably documenting everything. The accounting ghost was updating her relationship spreadsheets, and Pixel's emojis were setting off digital fireworks. But Junie didn't notice any of that. She was too busy discovering that kissing an emotional support demon made all the world's bureaucracy feel like poetry, and that sometimes the best magic came with proper paperwork. The vending machine hummed approvingly, "Today's special, happily ever after with extended warranty." And for once, even the forms could wait. Chapter 8, Interdimensional Interior Decorating. Junie's first day as head of the newly formed Cross-Species Sensitivity Training Department began with her office trying to merge with Malachi's through sheer architectural enthusiasm. The walls kept inching closer together whenever they weren't looking, like shy teenagers at a school dance. "I don't think that load-bearing beam is supposed to be making hard eyes at your filing cabinet," Junie observed, watching as her bookshelf attempted to hold hands with Malachi's desk. "The building's just expressing its supportive nature," Malachi replied, his horns glowing a peaceful turquoise as he arranged his emotion-collecting jars on shelves that spontaneously sprouted from the wall. Each jar sparkled with different colored mists, now labeled with both emotional content and interdepartmental filing codes. ANXIETY Form 23B, swirled with purple fog, while workplace enthusiasm pending approval contained what looked like caffeinated sunshine. The accounting ghost drifted through their adjoining wall, trailing a spreadsheet titled Office Space Optimization, Romance Edition. The spectral calculations suggested their offices should be equals closer love squared. "We're trying to maintain professional boundaries," Junie explained to both Ghost and Architecture. The water cooler in the corner gurgled skeptically. Pixel's morning emoji report floated in through the air vent, followed by building_shipping X activated. "Perhaps we should focus on our first sensitivity training session," Malachi suggested, adjusting his cardigan, today featuring tiny embroidered office supplies holding hands. "I've prepared some materials on werewolf workflow optimization during full moons." Barry the Fox chose that moment to skitter in, clutching a color-coded presentation folder in his teeth. He transformed just long enough to announce, "The vampire department is requesting special accommodations for their dawn meetings," before going vulpine again and reorganizing Junie's paperclips by emotional resonance. "Right," Junie nodded, pulling out her enchanted planner, which had taken to drawing little hearts around Malachi's name in the schedule. "We should probably address the sunlight sensitivity issues first." She was interrupted by a melodious wail from the break room. Marina Songweaver, the presentation singing siren, was apparently expressing her feelings about the new coffee machine's no musical orders policy through an impromptu aria. "I'll handle this," Malachi brightened, his horns shifting to customer service gold. "Emotional support is my eternal purpose, after all." Junie watched him head toward the break room, his cardigan now displaying scrolling text that read, "Keep calm and file your feelings accordingly." The sight made her smile, which caused several nearby pens to start writing love poetry in demon comic sans. "We're supposed to be working," she told the pens firmly. They responded by switching to romantic haiku. The day continued in this vein, a delicate balance of professional development and supernatural workplace romance. The building kept attempting to create accidental meeting spots, manifesting cozy corners and convenient closets whenever Junie and Malachi passed in the halls. By lunchtime, they had established a moon phase-sensitive scheduling system for werewolf employees, installed mood lighting with vampire-approved UV filters, mediated a dispute between a phoenix and the office insurance provider about predictable combustion patterns, and prevented the vending machine from replacing all its snacks with wedding-themed treats. All while their offices played an architectural version of footsie. "I think we're making progress," Junie declared, reviewing her notes as they shared lunch in what had once been a normal conference room but was now something of a romantic gazebo. The building was nothing if not persistent. The romantic gazebo turned conference room sprouted tiny fairy lights as Junie reviewed her notes, the crystal chandelier above them humming what sounded suspiciously like "Can't Help Falling in Love" in wind chime tones. "We just need to figure out why the photocopier keeps producing wedding invitations instead of the sensitivity training manuals," Junie mused, picking up a paper that read, "You're cordially invited to ship your coworkers," in elegant demon comic sans. Malachi's horns flickered thoughtfully, creating dancing shadows on the wall that paired off and waltzed. "Could be a side effect of the building's current, emotional investment in our relationship." The walls blushed a delicate rose gold in response. A new string of pixels emojis floated by, followed by printer_status, romantically compromised. The accounting ghost materialized through the chandelier, her spreadsheets now calculating the cost-benefit analysis of office-sponsored wedding planning. The numbers were surrounded by tiny animated hearts that performed complex mathematical dances. "We're not even engaged," Junie protested, though her latent powers caused several nearby office supplies to arrange themselves into a miniature wedding altar. "Actually," Malachi coughed, his cardigan suddenly very interested in displaying nervous geometric patterns, "according to Form 777L, subsection Future Planning, our relationship status automatically upgrades after sufficient paperwork accumulation." Before he could finish, Barry the Fox burst through the door, still clutching his ever-expanding notebook. He transformed just long enough to announce, "Theodore Grimsworth called an emergency meeting about the building's recent architectural choices. Apparently the basement tried to install a honeymoon suite." The chandelier chimed innocently. "This is getting out of hand," Junie sighed, watching as her coffee mug tried to propose to Malachi's. "We need to maintain some professional boundaries." "Agreed," Malachi nodded, though his horns were creating heart-shaped sparkles that the building's surfaces eagerly reflected. "Perhaps we should establish clear guidelines for workplace romance in supernatural offices." The vending machine down the hall dinged hopefully, today's special boundaries with a side of true love. Their conversation was interrupted by a melodious shriek from Marina. The siren had apparently discovered that all her presentations had auto-corrected themselves to read like romance novels. The quarterly budget report isn't supposed to be a sonnet, her voice trilled through the halls, setting off a chain reaction of romantic office supply choreography. Junie buried her face in her hands, as several nearby plants sprouted engagement rings instead of flowers. How are we supposed to run sensitivity training when the entire office is trying to plan our wedding? We could start with a seminar on appropriate expressions of workplace shipping? Malachi suggested, his customer service instincts kicking in. His horns shifted to a professional shade of rose quartz. The building creaked hopefully. First, Junie declared, standing up with determination that caused nearby paperclips to swoon, we need to establish some ground rules. Starting with the photocopier. But as they headed toward the supply room, the corridors rearranged themselves into a chapel-like configuration, complete with an aisle runner made of expense reports. This might take a while, Malachi observed, as his cardigan began embroidering itself with tiny wedding bells. The accounting ghost's latest spreadsheet floated by, equals if love equals true then ELSE. And somewhere in the distance, they could hear Pixel's emojis planning a digital bachelor party. Just another day at Ever After Industries, where even the most professional boundaries came with a side of supernatural romance. Chapter 9, The Great Office Intervention. The morning started with Junie finding her desk, covered in bridal magazines from Parallel Dimensions. 101 Ways to Accessorize Your Demon Groom lay next to Modern Bride, Supernatural Edition, and Perfect Planning for Mixed Species Marriages. The office supply closet staged this intervention, Malachi explained, his horns glowing in apologetic rose gold. Apparently, they're concerned we're not taking our destiny seriously enough. A stapler nearby nodded emphatically, clicking its metal teeth in what might have been Morse code for just kiss already. We've only been dating for 2 weeks. Junie protested, causing several nearby sticky notes to flutter disappointedly. We haven't even gone on a proper date without the entire office chaperoning. As if on cue, Barry the Fox poked his head around the corner, his tiny notebook now expanded into a full wedding planner. He transformed just long enough to ask, thoughts on celestial infernal fusion cuisine for the reception, before scampering away to reorganize the seating chart he'd been working on. The accounting ghost drifted through the ceiling, her spreadsheets now displaying an elaborate timeline titled Operation Eternal Union, with appropriate tax benefits. The calculations included everything from ceremony logistics to the probability of spontaneous flower growth during the vows. Perhaps, Malachi suggested, adjusting his cardigan, today featuring tiny animated couples dancing through various supernatural courtship rituals, we should focus on our actual jobs? The sensitivity training seminar starts in an hour. Junie nodded gratefully, reaching for her presentation materials, only to find that every page had been transformed into calligraphed wedding vows. Pixel's morning memo floated by, followed by workplace_boundaries X, loading. Error 404, romance too powerful. Right? Junie sighed, watching as her coffee mug attempted to serenade Malachi's with what sounded like a caffeinated version of At Last. Time for some professional boundaries. But as they headed to the conference room, the building had other ideas. The corridors shifted and swirled, depositing them not in their intended destination, but in a cozy alcove that hadn't existed moments before. Fairy lights winked overhead, and somewhere distant, office supplies had formed an impromptu orchestra. The architecture is getting sneaky, Malachi observed, his horns creating a soft spotlight effect that the building eagerly enhanced with rose-tinted shadows. We need to have a serious talk with everyone, Junie declared, her determination causing several nearby plants to swoon dramatically. This wedding fever has gone too far. The vending machine down the hall chimed hopefully, today's special denial with a side of inevitable romance. Just then, Theodore Grimsworth materialized, his 7 eyebrows arranged in what might have been concern. Ah, good. The office called an emergency intervention about your, he consulted a form that sparkled suspiciously, resistance to proper romantic progression protocols. The office did what now? Junie blinked. The walls rippled with anticipation as employees began gathering, vampires from accounting drifting in through shadows, werewolves from HR patting in on soft paws, and at least 3 different species of 5 from IT floating near the ceiling. Marina Songweaver cleared her throat, preparing what was undoubtedly going to be a musical number about the importance of embracing destiny. "Oh no," Junie muttered as Malachi's horns began to glow with what looked suspiciously like touched embarrassment. The intervention had begun. The impromptu office gathering had transformed the alcove into something between a therapy circle and a supernatural wedding planning committee. Barry the Fox's notebook had somehow spawned several color-coded subcommittees, each dedicated to a different aspect of Junie and Malachi's inevitable union. "Now then," Theodore Grimsworth intoned, his 7 eyebrows arranging themselves into intervention formation, "we've gathered today to address the concerning lack of romantic progression in our office's premier supernatural partnership." The walls nodded in agreement, paint shifting to display a PowerPoint presentation titled "Love in the Time of Corporate Policy, a Case Study." "I have prepared a musical analysis of their emotional journey," Marina announced, scales shimmering with determination. The water cooler began humming backup harmonies. "That won't be nieces," Junie started, but was interrupted by Pixel's latest emoji projection, followed by relationship_metrics X, running diagnostics. "According to our calculations," the accounting ghost spreadsheet sparkled overhead, "you're precisely 47% behind schedule on traditional courtship milestones." Malachi's cardigan began nervously embroidering itself with tiny clock faces, each showing different countdown timers. His horns shifted through various shades of embarrassed pink. "Schedule?" Junie squeaked, her surprise causing several nearby filing cabinets to sprout roses. "There's a schedule?" Barry transformed just long enough to flourish a chart that mapped out everything from first dance, office party edition, to proposal, preferably during Mercury in retrograde for maximum supernatural blessing. "The office supplies have already formed a wedding planning committee," a vampire from accounting noted, gesturing to where a group of staplers was practicing their processional march. "The paper clips are particularly invested in the flower arrangements." The paper clips demonstrated by forming themselves into a bouquet of metallic roses. "This is ridiculous," Junie declared, though her powers betrayed her by causing nearby sticky notes to fold themselves into heart shapes. "We're trying to maintain professional." "Oh honey," Marina trilled, her voice carrying hints of romantic sea shanties, "professionalism sailed away the moment your therapy journal summoned love instead of standard demonic corruption." The office supplies orchestra struck up what sounded suspiciously like "Can't Fight This Feeling," performed entirely through the medium of 3-hole punchers and rubber bands. "Actually," Malachi coughed, his horns creating tiny fireworks of nervous energy, "according to the latest infernal dating guidelines, Section 4.8, Paragraph C, emotional support demons are encouraged to maintain a balance between professional duties and personal relationships, provided all necessary forms are filed in." "Triplicate yes," the entire office chorused, followed by a wave of fond sighs. The vending machine chimed, "Today's special destiny, now with reduced paperwork." "Perhaps," Theodore Grimsworth suggested, producing a scroll that seemed to be written in glitter ink, "we should review the office's proposed timeline for your romantic progression." The scroll unfurled itself, revealing an elaborate flowchart that somehow incorporated both traditional dating milestones and supernatural bureaucratic requirements. Someone had added little hearts around first joint form filing and synchronized coffee break optimization. "I particularly support the proposal timeline," Barry chimed in, momentarily human again. "The full moon next month provides optimal celestial infernal energy alignment for cross-species commitment ceremonies." The accounting ghost spreadsheet quickly calculated the romantic atmospheric conditions, complete with pie charts measuring destiny fulfillment quotients. Junie felt her cheeks flush as Malachi's horns began to glow with what might have been consideration. Several nearby plants sprouted engagement rings in response to her elevated heart rate. This is, she struggled to find words as the office waited expectantly, various supernatural species leaning forward in anticipation. A very thorough presentation? Malachi offered helpfully, his customer service training kicking in. His cardigan had begun displaying tiny scenes from their possible future, each one more domestically adorable than the last. The office beamed collectively. Even the building seemed to hold its architectural breath. "This is absolutely not happening," Junie finally managed, her declaration causing several romance novels to fall dejectedly from a nearby bookshelf. "We appreciate your enthusiasm, but Malachi and I will progress our relationship at our own pace." The office supplies orchestra deflated into a minor key. "But the timeline," Barry whimpered, clutching his planning notebook like a security blanket. "The statistical probability of true love," the accounting ghost's spreadsheet began calculating furiously. "The architectural opportunities," the building creaked hopefully. "What Junie means," Malachi stepped in, his horns glowing with diplomatic iridescence, "is that while we deeply appreciate the office's support, perhaps we could focus on less intense expressions of encouragement?" A pause, filled only with the sound of disappointed office supplies. "We could scale back to subtle hints?" Pixel's emojis suggested. "No hints," Junie said firmly. "Extremely subtle hints?" Barry counter-offered, his tail wagging hopefully. "No hints at all," Junie insisted, though she couldn't help smiling as Malachi's cardigan displayed a tiny scene of them sharing coffee while surrounded by very quiet, very professional office supplies. The intervention dispersed gradually, trailing sighs and romantic spreadsheet calculations. The building sulkily rearranged itself back to its standard layout, though it couldn't resist adding a few heart-shaped windows. "Well," Malachi observed once they were alone, his horns creating a soft, intimate light, "that was completely ridiculous," Junie suggested, watching as nearby sticky notes attempted to spell out sorry in remorseful formation. "I was going to say, thoroughly documented," he grinned, pulling out a form that had materialized during the intervention. "Apparently, we now have official paperwork for rejection of collective romance optimization efforts." Junie laughed, causing several paperclips to perk up hopefully before remembering their new mandate for restraint. "At least they care," Malachi added softly, his cardigan now showing tiny scenes of their actual relationship timeline, each moment precious precisely because it was their own. "They do," Junie agreed, reaching for his hand. "Even if they're completely insane." The vending machine hummed contentedly, today's special, love at your own pace, with complimentary emotional support snacks. And somewhere in the building, a very quiet, very subtle office supplies orchestra began playing the softest of love songs. Chapter 10: The Art of Subtle Shipping. The week following the intervention, Ever After Industries attempted its version of subtle, romantic encouragement, which was about as subtle as a unicorn in a china shop. The building had taken to rearranging itself accidentally whenever Junie and Malachi walked down different corridors, creating chance meetings that were about as coincidental as pre-planned destiny. The water cooler would mysteriously malfunction whenever they were both reaching for a cup, forcing them to share. Even the elevator seemed in on it, frequently stopping between floors just long enough for a meaningful glance before carrying on with exaggerated innocence. "I appreciate the effort," Junie told the architecture one morning, watching as her office inched microscopically closer to Malachi's for the third time that day. "But we can see what you're doing." The walls tried to look innocent, though the paint shifted to a telling shade of blush pink. Pixel's morning status report floated by, followed by Operation_Subtle_Cupid X, running quietly. "At least they're trying," Malachi observed, his horns creating a soft glow that the building's surfaces definitely didn't reflect in heart shapes, or at least pretended not to. His cardigan today featured tiny embroidered scenes of office supplies practicing restraint, though the thread occasionally got excited and formed little hearts before quickly unraveling them. The accounting ghost's spreadsheets had evolved into a complex system of romantic probability calculations disguised as quarterly reports. Every now and then, A tiny heart emoji would slip into the formulas before being hastily converted back to numbers. Barry the Fox had taken to organizing files in ways that accidentally spelled out romantic messages when viewed from above. Today's filing system allegedly read Destiny when seen from the right angle, though he claimed it was purely alphabetical. "I saw that," Junie called out as a paper clip attempted to fold itself into a heart before quickly straightening into a proper office supply shape. "They're doing their best," Malachi chuckled, watching as his coffee mug tried very hard not to flirt with hers. "Though I'm pretty sure the vending machine is keeping a secret romance novel about us." The machine's display flickered innocently. Today's special, completely normal snacks, no romantic subtext at all. Junie was about to respond when Theodore Grimsworth materialized, his 7 eyebrows arranged in what might have been casual nonchalance. "Ah, Ms. Bloom, Mr. Goodfellow. I trust you're finding the office's new, professional distance acceptable?" Behind him, several staplers formed a heart, before quickly dispersing into a very business-like straight line. "It's certainly subtle," Junie offered diplomatically, as a nearby fern attempted to spell out love before pretending it was just reaching for sunlight. Morena drifted past, humming what was definitely not a love song, though it had suspicious lyrics about emotion-collecting demons and HR managers finding happiness. "Completely professional," Malachi agreed, his horns betraying him by glowing softly rose gold. A paper airplane landed on his desk, unfolding to reveal Pixel's latest update. The day continued in this fashion, with the entire office trying and failing to be subtle about their romantic shipping. The photocopier had started producing documents with tiny hearts in the margins that claimed to be printer errors. The break room kept rearranging itself to create cozy corners that it insisted were ergonomic workspace solutions. Even the ghost in accounting had taken to expressing their calculations through what they claimed were purely coincidental, romantic formulae, equals if love greater than denial than ELSE. By lunchtime, the office's attempts at subtlety had reached new levels of obvious discretion. Junie found herself in what the building insisted was a standardized meeting space, but looked suspiciously like a romantic cafe, complete with fairy lights that the architecture claimed were OSHA-approved workplace illumination. "At least they're trying," Malachi observed, his horns creating a soft glow that absolutely didn't make the room look more romantic, according to the building's official statement. His cardigan today featured tiny embroidered scenes of professional workplace conduct, though the thread occasionally got excited and formed little hearts, before quickly unraveling them with embarrassed efficiency. The vending machine hummed innocently nearby. Today's special, strictly professional snacks. Any resemblance to romantic treats is purely coincidental. "I saw that," Junie called out as a paper clip attempted to fold itself into a heart before quickly straightening into a proper office supply shape. "And you too," she added to the stapler that was trying to arrange documents into a rose pattern while pretending to file them. Barry the Fox scurried past, his notebook now labeled entirely professional observations, no shipping content whatsoever. He transformed just long enough to announce, "These corridor intersections creating meet-cute opportunities are purely coincidental and part of standard office layout protocols," before darting away to reorganize what looked suspiciously like wedding venue brochures disguised as tax forms. The accounting ghost's latest spreadsheet floated by, titled Q4 Projections, Romance Free, with a tiny asterisk leading to microscopic text that read, "Unless Destiny Intervenes." "They're getting creative with their loopholes," Malachi noted, watching as his coffee mug maintained a professional distance from Junie's while shooting it longing glances. A string of pixels emojis drifted overhead, followed by maintaining _professional_boundaries, X wink wink. The afternoon brought more of the same determined non-interference. Morena had taken to singing what she claimed were standard office productivity shanties, that somehow all seemed to include lyrics about star-crossed lovers in a corporate setting. The water cooler kept dispensing rose-flavored water, insisting it was a new mineral blend for improved workplace hydration. Even Theodore Grimsworth's 7 eyebrows had developed a habit of arranging themselves into subtle heart shapes during meetings, though he maintained This was a standard bureaucratic expression of neutral observation. The photocopier is writing poetry again, Junie sighed, holding up a document where the margins were filled with what the machine claimed were standard terms and conditions, but read suspiciously like sonnets about office romance. At least they're trying to be discreet about it, Malachi offered, just as every plant in the vicinity bloomed into heart-shaped flowers before quickly rearranging their petals into more professional configurations. The day continued in this fashion, with the entire office maintaining what they considered a masterclass in subtle matchmaking. The filing cabinets had developed a mysterious tendency to play romantic music whenever opened, though they insisted it was atmospheric workplace enhancement. The ceiling tiles formed patterns that looked remarkably like cupids when viewed from certain angles, but claimed to be standard acoustic designs. As the workday drew to a close, Junie and Malachi found themselves in yet another coincidentally cozy corner of the office, surrounded by what the building insisted was standard end-of-day atmospheric lighting, but looked remarkably like sunset mood lighting. Well, Junie smiled, watching as nearby sticky notes tried very hard not to form hearts. At least they're making an effort. Indeed, Malachi agreed, his horns creating a soft glow that the architecture definitely wasn't enhancing with romantic shadows, according to official building statements. Though I suspect Barry's professional workplace observation journal is still secretly a wedding planner. The vending machine chimed softly, evening special platonic refreshments with a side of destiny. And somewhere in the distance, an office supplies orchestra played what they claimed was standard elevator music, but sounded remarkably like At Last. Just another day at Ever After Industries, where even attempted subtlety came with a heavy dose of supernatural shipping. Chapter 11: The Performance Review of Destiny. Junie arrived at work to find her desk covered in what appeared to be standard performance review forms, except they were printed on paper that sparkled suspiciously and smelled faintly of wedding cake. "Quarterly evaluations already?" she asked the heir, watching as her stapler attempted to arrange the papers into a heart before remembering its commitment to subtlety and quickly forming them into a proper stack instead. Actually, Malachi materialized beside her, his cardigan today featuring tiny embroidered performance metrics that occasionally formed love hearts before quickly transforming into proper pie charts. These are relationship progression assessments disguised as standard corporate paperwork. The forms bore titles like Interdimensional Romance Efficiency Report and Cross-Species Relationship Optimization Analysis, though someone had attempted to cover these with sticky notes labeled Totally Normal Workplace Evaluation. Pixel's morning memo floated by, followed by Assessment_Mode X, definitely not about love. "I thought we talked about this," Junie sighed, causing several nearby pens to write love poetry before quickly scribbling it out with professional embarrassment. The accounting ghost's latest spreadsheet materialized, equals if review equals love then ELSE, before quickly adding, for statistical purposes only. Barry the Fox scurried past, clutching what he claimed was a standard performance metrics collection, but looked suspiciously like a romantic progress report. His tie remained perfectly knotted despite his vulpine state, though it had developed a pattern of tiny hearts that it insisted were professional geometric shapes. Perhaps, Malachi suggested, his horns glowing with what he would claim was purely professional illumination, we should just play along? For office morale? The vending machine chimed hopefully, today's special performance review snacks, any romantic undertones are purely coincidental. Junie stared at the stack of sparkly performance review forms, each one more obviously romantic than the last, despite their attempts at professional camouflage. The top sheet bore the header Quarterly Emotional Synergy Assessment, not a dating progress report, in Demon Comic Sans, that kept shifting to heart-shaped dots over the eyes before correcting itself. "Let's see," Malachi mused, his horns creating a soft glow as he flipped through the papers. "We have evaluations for collaborative chemistry enhancement and cross-species partnership optimization. Oh, and this one's measuring our professional proximity satisfaction quotient." A paper clip swooned off the desk, before quickly straightening itself with embarrassed efficiency. "The metrics are quite thorough," Junie noted, examining a chart that claimed to track their workplace harmony index, but was clearly just plotting the number of times they'd made eye contact during meetings. Though I'm not sure how they managed to quantify destined romance probability. That would be my doing, the accounting ghost spreadsheet shimmered overhead. Equals SQRT love squared plus destiny coffee _ breaks. Barry the Fox skittered past, dropping a folder labeled strictly professional documentation, no wedding plans inside. His tail wagged in what he probably thought was a subtle manner, before he disappeared around a corner to alphabetize what looked suspiciously like honeymoon brochures disguised as expense reports. The building hummed with barely contained excitement, its walls shifting just slightly pinker whenever Junie and Malachi looked at each other. The water cooler began dispensing what it claimed was standard mineral water, now with extra romance or refreshment. Question 4 is interesting, Malachi pointed out, his cardigan's embroidery forming tiny hearts before quickly morphing into professional-looking graphs. On a scale of purely professional to eternally destined, how would you rate your current workplace partnership? With subcategories for enchanted eye contact duration and synchronized coffee break frequency, Junie added, watching as her pen tried very hard not to draw hearts in the margins. Pixel status update floated by, followed by evaluation _ metrics, X, collecting data for professional purposes only. A melody drifted from Marina's office, something about performance reviews of the heart, set to what sounded suspiciously like wedding march tempo. The siren quickly switched to humming what she claimed was standard office ambiance, when she noticed Junie looking her way. We should probably fill these out, Malachi suggested, his horns shifting to a warm rose gold that the building definitely wasn't enhancing with strategic mood lighting. For administrative purposes. The vending machine chimed supportively, today's special evaluation energy boost, with a side of serendipity. Junie picked up her pen, which trembled with barely contained romantic enthusiasm. Well, I suppose my interdimensional collaboration skills have improved since you arrived. And my earthly realm integration metrics are certainly above average, Malachi added, as his coffee mug attempted to maintain professional distance from Junie's while shooting it longing glances. Theodore Grimsworth chose that moment to materialize, his 7 eyebrows arranged in what might have been casual observation, but looked more like suppressed matchmaking glee. Ah, the quarterly assessments. I trust you're finding the evaluation criteria comprehensive? Behind him, several staplers formed a heart, before quickly dispersing into a business-like formation. The photocopier hummed innocently, though its latest prints had tiny cupids watermarked in the corners that it claimed were standard security features. Very thorough, Junie nodded, as her sticky notes rearranged themselves into what was definitely not a wedding countdown calendar. Though I'm curious about the section titled, Future Collaborative Potential, with optional chapel booking form. Standard administrative foresight, Grimsworth coughed, while his eyebrows formed unmistakable heart shapes. Purely for organizational purposes. The accounting ghost's latest calculation floated by, equals if denial greater than destiny then ELSE. Continuing Chapter 11, The Performance Review of Destiny. Junie tapped her enchanted pen against the performance review forms, watching as tiny sparks of possibility scattered across the pages like stardust. The office hummed with barely contained excitement, even the potted plants leaning in to eavesdrop on their responses. Let's see, she murmured, scanning question 5. How would you rate your supernatural synergy on a scale from casual cooperation to written in the stars? With a footnote about proper citation formats for destiny-related claims. Malachi's horns shifted to a thoughtful periwinkle as he settled into the chair beside her. Today's cardigan featured tiny animated scenes of their shared moments, though the embroidery kept trying to fast forward to future possibilities before catching itself and rewinding to more professional timeframes. I particularly appreciate the statistical analysis section, he noted, pointing to a graph that claimed to track their professional chemistry quotient, but was clearly just monitoring how often they shared snacks from the vending machine. Though I'm not sure how they calculated our magical compatibility index, using only coffee break variables. The accounting ghost materialized through the desk, trailing formulae that sparkled with romantic possibility. Equals sum coffee underscore dates shared underscore snacks. Denial underscore coefficient. We're not in denial, Junie protested, causing several nearby paperclips to arrange themselves into knowing smirks before quickly straightening into professional positions. Pixel's latest update floated by on gossamer threads of code, followed by reality underscore check X loading. A melodious giggle drifted from the break room, where Morena was apparently serenading the coffee machine with what she claimed was a totally professional ballad of workplace partnership, not a love song. The machine responded by dispensing heart-shaped foam patterns that it insisted were standard latte art. Question 12 is rather specific, Junie noted, trying to maintain professional composure as her chair inched closer to Malachi's of its own accord. In the event of spontaneous romantic revelation, please rate the likelihood of the following office supplies bursting into celebratory formation. With subcategories for stapler choreography and paperclip flash mobs, Malachi added, his horns creating a soft glow that the building's surfaces definitely weren't reflecting in heart-shaped patterns, according to official maintenance reports. Barry the Fox scurried past their desk, dropping what appeared to be a strictly professional event planning guide that somehow contained swatches for wedding color schemes. His notebook had grown so large it now required its own filing cabinet, though he insisted it contained purely observational data. The vending machine hummed a tune that sounded suspiciously like the wedding march, today's special performance review fuel, with a side of sweet destiny. Theodore Grimsworth materialized by their desk, his 7 eyebrows arranged in what might have been professional interest but looked more like matchmaking anticipation. I trust you're finding the evaluation process illuminating? It's certainly comprehensive, Junie managed as her sticky notes attempted to spell out, just admit it, before quickly rearranging themselves into quarterly metrics analysis. Though some questions seem a bit. Malachi paused, watching as his coffee mug performed an elaborate courtship dance around Junie's outside standard performance review parameters. All entirely necessary for proper administrative documentation, Grimsworth assured them, while his eyebrows formed unmistakable heart shapes. For example, question 15 regarding your preferred celestial infernal ceremony venues is purely for interdimensional logistics planning. The accounting ghost's latest projection sparkled overhead, equals if love greater than paperwork than ELSE. And the section about compatible magical resonance frequencies? Junie raised an eyebrow as nearby plants sprouted tiny wedding bells, before quickly transforming them into more professional-looking blooms. Standard supernatural workplace harmony assessment, Grimsworth coughed, though 3 of his eyebrows were definitely winking. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with the Office Romance Observation Committee, the Standard Performance Review Board. As he dematerialized, leaving behind a trail of sparkles that formed suspicious heart shapes, Junie turned to Malachi with a mix of exasperation and fondness. They're never going to give up, are they? According to Form 666B, subsection Persistent Office Shipping, Malachi's horns glowed with warm amusement, they're contractually obligated to maintain hope until official relationship status updates are filed in triplicate. The office supplies sighed collectively, then tried to pretend they were just releasing excess ink. I'll continue from where we left off in Chapter 11, maintaining the whimsical, cozy tone while developing both the romance and magical office elements. Junie stared at the performance review forms spread across her desk like a paper trail of destiny, each sheet shimmering with barely contained romantic potential. The afternoon sun slanted through the office's heart-shaped windows, which the building insisted were standard geometric designs, casting rose-gold shadows that definitely weren't coordinated with Malachi's horn glow. You know, she mused, watching her pen dance eagerly across the page, leaving trails of sparkles it claimed were standard ink properties, these questions are getting increasingly specific. Malachi leaned closer, his cardigan's embroidery perking up hopefully, before remembering its commitment to subtlety. Question 23 does seem rather pointed. In the event of spontaneous proposal, please rate preferred location's magical ambiance on a scale of gentle enchantment to reality-altering romance. A paper clip swooned off the desk, caught itself mid-fall, then pretended to be organizing nearby documents. The accounting ghost's latest formula floated by like mathematical matchmaking. Equals if denial equals false, then ELSE. I particularly enjoy the statistical analysis of our coffee break synchronization, Junie noted, flipping to a page filled with graphs that claimed to track workplace proximity optimization, but were clearly plotting their every shared glance. The vending machine chimed supportively, today's special, statistical significance, with a side of soulmate probability. Barry the Fox scurried past, dropping what appeared to be a stack of standard office forms, but was actually a collection of interdimensional wedding venue brochures, poorly disguised as quarterly reports. His tie, impeccable despite his vulpine state, had developed a pattern of tiny hearts that it insisted were professional geometric designs. The metrics are quite thorough, Malachi observed, his horns creating a soft glow that the building's surfaces definitely weren't amplifying romantically, according to official maintenance logs. Though I'm not sure how they calculated our destined partnership quotient, using only shared snack data. A string of pixels emojis floated by on gossamer threads of code, followed by analyzing_denial_levels X. Marina's voice drifted from the break room, singing what she claimed was a standard productivity shanty, but sounded suspiciously like Can't Help Falling in Love set to office ambient noise. The day continued in this fashion, with every department contributing their own subtle and not-so-subtle observations to the performance review. Even the photocopier got involved, adding tiny hearts to its watermarks while insisting they were standard security features. Want me to continue with more of their attempts to complete this obviously romantic performance review while maintaining professional appearances? Continuing Chapter 11 of The Emotional Support Demon. The late afternoon sun painted lazy stripes across Junie's desk, catching the glitter in the performance review forms and sending tiny rainbows dancing across the walls. Each rainbow seemed to form a heart, before quickly dispersing into more professional patterns, as if the very light itself was trying and failing to maintain subtlety. Question 37 is particularly creative, Junie noted, tapping her enchanted pen against a page that sparkled with barely contained romantic statistics. They've somehow created a pie chart of our destiny probability, using only data from shared elevator rides. Malachi leaned closer, his cardigan's tiny embroidered scenes flickering between professional meetings and romantic moments like a confused PowerPoint presentation. The methodology is quite impressive. Though I'm not sure how they determined that our magical resonance frequency peaks during coffee breaks. The accounting ghost's latest spreadsheet materialized through the ceiling, numbers swirling like love-struck stars. Equals SQRT coffee_chemistry squared plus shared_snacks, denial_coefficient. We're not in denial, Junie protested, causing several nearby sticky notes to arrange themselves into a skeptical before quickly redistributing into a more professional pattern. The vending machine chimed knowingly, today's special reality check with a side of truth cookies. Barry the Fox darted past their desks, his ever-expanding notebook now requiring its own enchanted file cabinet with a heart-shaped lock, which he insisted was standard office equipment. His tie, somehow still immaculate in vulpine form, had developed a pattern of tiny cupids that it claimed were standard geometric shapes. The afternoon light shifted again, and Junie caught Malachi watching her with a soft expression that made his horns glow like sunset through stained glass. The building immediately adjusted its architectural features to enhance the romantic lighting, then tried to play it off as routine maintenance. You missed a section, Malachi pointed out, his customer service training battling with obviously non-professional feelings. Page 12 has a questionnaire about our future collaborative potential. With subcategories for preferred ceremony venues and honeymoon realm selection? Junie raised an eyebrow as nearby paper clips formed themselves into wedding bells before quickly straightening with embarrassed efficiency. Marina's voice drifted through the ventilation system, singing what she claimed was a standard office productivity melody, but sounded suspiciously like At Last remixed with printer noises. Pixel's latest status update floated by on threads of enchanted code, followed by processing_obvious_attraction X. The photocopier hummed to life unprompted, producing a series of what it claimed were standard administrative documents, but were clearly seating charts for various celestial infernal celebration venues. It quickly tried to eat the evidence, causing a paper jam that spelled out "Just kiss already" in smudged toner. Perhaps, Junie suggested, watching as her coffee mug performed an elaborate courtship dance around Malachi's, we should focus on the actual performance metrics? Of course, Malachi nodded, his horns creating a soft glow that the building's surfaces definitely weren't reflecting in heart shapes, according to official maintenance reports. Though I'm curious about their calculation of our synchronized soul statistics. The accounting ghost's latest projection sparkled overhead, equals if love greater than bureaucracy than ELSE. Just then, Theodore Grimsworth materialized by their desks, his 7 eyebrows arranged in what might have been professional interest, but looked more like romantic anticipation. How are the evaluations progressing? The committee is particularly interested in your responses to the future partnership potential section. The wedding venue survey? Junie asked innocently. Standard interdimensional logistics assessment, Grimsworth coughed, while his eyebrows formed unmistakable heart shapes. Purely for administrative purposes. A paper airplane made from what appeared to be wedding invitation samples, disguised as memo paper, landed on Junie's desk. Inside pixels emojis spelled out. Though, Grimsworth added, his form flickering between various states of bureaucratic excitement, if you happen to have any preferences regarding celestial infernal celebration planning, we'll be sure to file the appropriate forms, Malachi interjected smoothly, his customer service training kicking in triplicate, with proper interdimensional notarization. The office supplies sighed collectively, then tried to disguise it as a synchronized paper shuffling exercise. I'll continue from where we left off in Chapter 11, maintaining the whimsical, cozy tone while developing both the romance and magical office elements. The late afternoon sun painted gossamer stripes across Junie's desk, turning each performance review form into a canvas of shimmering possibilities. Even the paperclips seemed to sparkle with barely contained romantic enthusiasm, though they quickly arranged themselves into proper office formations whenever she looked their way. You know, Junie mused, watching her enchanted pen dance eagerly across the page, leaving trails of iridescent ink that smelled faintly of wedding cake, I'm starting to think this isn't actually about work performance. Malachi's horns shifted to a knowing rose gold as he leaned closer, his cardigan's embroidery perking up hopefully, before remembering its commitment to subtlety. Today's tiny animated scenes kept alternating between professional meetings and romantic moments, like a PowerPoint presentation having an identity crisis. What gave it away, he teased, gesturing to question 43. Please rate your preferred celestial infernal commitment ceremony ambiance on a scale from gentle enchantment to reality-altering romance. A paper clip swooned off the desk, caught itself mid-fall, then pretended to be organizing nearby documents into what was definitely not a heart shape. The accounting ghost's latest formula floated by like mathematical matchmaking. Equals if denial equals false then ELSE. I particularly enjoy their statistical analysis, Junie noted, flipping to a page filled with graphs that claimed to track workplace proximity optimization, but were clearly plotting their every shared glance. Though I'm not sure how they calculated our destined partnership quotient, using only shared snack data. The vending machine chimed knowingly, today's special statistical significance, with a side of soulmate probability. Barry the Fox scurried past, dropping what appeared to be standard office forms, but were actually interdimensional wedding venue brochures poorly disguised as quarterly reports. His tie, impeccably knotted despite his vulpine state, had developed a pattern of tiny hearts that it insisted were professional geometric designs. The metrics are quite thorough, Malachi observed, his horns creating a soft glow that the building's surfaces definitely weren't amplifying romantically, according to official maintenance logs. Though question 57, about our future magical resonance compatibility, seems a bit leading. A string of pixels emojis floated by on gossamer threads of code, followed by analyzing obvious attraction X. Marina's voice drifted from the break room, singing what she claimed was a standard productivity shanty, but sounded suspiciously like Can't Help Falling in Love remixed with printer noises. The afternoon light shifted again, and Junie caught Malachi watching her with an expression that made his horns glow like sunset through stained glass. The building immediately adjusted its architectural features to enhance the moment, then tried to play it off as routine maintenance. The late afternoon light spilled through the heart-shaped windows, which the building still insisted were standard geometric designs, casting rose-gold shadows across Junie's desk. Her enchanted pen twirled anxiously between her fingers, leaving trails of sparkles that formed tiny hearts before dissolving into more professional patterns. "Perhaps we should address the demon in the room," Junie suggested, gesturing to the overwhelming stack of performance review forms that seemed to multiply every time she looked away. Each page shimmered with barely contained romantic potential, the questions becoming increasingly transparent in their matchmaking agenda. Malachi's horns shifted through various shades of pink as he examined question 62. On a scale of professional partnership to written in the stars, how would you rate your current workplace chemistry? His cardigan's embroidery betrayed his attempted poker face, tiny animated scenes flickering between professional meetings and romantic moments like a lovesick PowerPoint presentation. The vending machine hummed a familiar tune, today's special denial management snacks with extra truth sprinkles. "We're not in denial," Junie protested, causing several nearby sticky notes to arrange themselves into a skeptical, "Sure, honey," before quickly redistributing into a more professional pattern. The accounting ghost's latest spreadsheet materialized through the ceiling, numbers swirling like love-struck stars. Equals SQRT mutual _pining squared plus shared _glances inevitable _destiny. Barry the Fox darted past their desks, his ever-expanding notebook now requiring its own enchanted file cabinet with a heart-shaped lock, which he insisted was standard office equipment. His tie, somehow still immaculate in vulpine form, had developed a pattern of tiny cupids that it claimed were abstract geometric shapes. "I particularly appreciate their attention to detail," Malachi noted, pointing to a graph that tracked their synchronized coffee break frequency against phases of the moon. "Though I'm not sure how they determined our magical compatibility index, using only data from shared elevator rides." Marina's voice drifted through the ventilation system, singing what she claimed was a standard office productivity melody, but sounded suspiciously like Can't Fight This Feeling remixed with printer noises. Pixel's latest status update floated by on threads of enchanted code, followed by processing _obvious attraction X. The photocopier whirred to life unprompted, producing a series of what it claimed were standard administrative documents, but were clearly seating charts for various celestial infernal celebration venues. It quickly tried to eat the evidence, causing a paper jam that spelled out "Just Kiss Already" in smudged toner. Theodore Grimsworth chose that moment to materialize by their desks, his 7 eyebrows arranged in what might have been professional interest but looked more like romantic anticipation. "How are the evaluations progressing? The committee is particularly interested in your responses to the future partnership potential section." "You mean the wedding venue survey?" Junie asked innocently. "Standard interdimensional logistics assessment," Grimsworth coughed, while his eyebrows formed unmistakable heart shapes. "Purely for administrative purposes." A paper airplane made from what appeared to be wedding invitation samples, disguised as memo paper, landed on Junie's desk. Inside, Pixel's emojis spelled out. The afternoon light shifted again, and Junie caught Malachi watching her with an expression that made his horns glow like sunset through stained glass. The building immediately adjusted its architectural features to enhance the moment, then tried to play it off as routine maintenance. "You missed one," Malachi pointed out softly, his customer service training battling with obviously non-professional feelings. "Page 15 has a questionnaire about our shared magical resonance." Junie's cheeks flushed as she read the questions, causing nearby plants to burst into bloom with flowers that looked suspiciously like tiny wedding bells, before quickly morphing into more professional-looking blooms. The accounting ghost's latest projection sparkled overhead, equals if love greater than paperwork then ELSE. And somewhere in the distance, they could hear the office supplies orchestra practicing what they claimed was standard elevator music, but sounded remarkably like the wedding march. The afternoon sun cast honeyed light through the heart-shaped windows, catching the glitter in Junie's performance review forms and sending tiny prismatic hearts dancing across her desk. She absently batted at them with her enchanted pen, which left trails of sparkles that formed themselves into romantic statistical graphs before dissolving. You know what's really impressive? Junie mused, flipping through pages that smelled suspiciously like wedding cake. They've somehow calculated our destined partnership quotient, using nothing but coffee break data and shared snack frequencies. Malachi leaned closer, his cardigan today featuring tiny animated scenes that kept trying to fast forward to future possibilities before catching themselves and rewinding to more professional timeframes. The statistical modeling is quite thorough, he agreed, his horns casting a soft rose gold glow that the building's surfaces definitely weren't amplifying romantically, according to official maintenance logs. A paper clip swooned off the desk, caught itself mid-fall, then pretended to be alphabetizing nearby sticky notes. The accounting ghost's latest formula shimmered overhead like mathematical matchmaking. Equals SQRT, mutual underscore pining squared plus shared underscore glances, inevitable underscore destiny. We're not pining, Junie protested, causing several nearby plants to burst into knowing blooms before quickly morphing their flowers into more professional shapes. The vending machine chimed skeptically, today's special self-awareness snacks with truth sprinkles. Barry the Fox scurried past, his notebook now so thick with purely professional observations that it required its own enchanted filing cabinet. The cabinet sported a heart-shaped lock that Barry insisted was standard office equipment. His perfectly knotted tie had somehow developed a pattern of tiny cupids that he claimed were abstract geometric shapes. Question 73 is particularly creative, Malachi noted, tapping a page with his horn light, creating a soft spotlight effect. They've cross-referenced our elevator encounters with lunar phases to calculate our magical resonance compatibility. A string of pixels emojis floated by on gossamer threads of code, followed by processing underscore obvious underscore attraction X. Marina's voice drifted through the ventilation system, singing what she claimed was a standard productivity melody, but sounded suspiciously like Can't Fight This Feeling remixed with printer noises. The photocopier whirred to life unprompted, producing a series of what it claimed were standard administrative documents, but were clearly seating charts for various celestial infernal celebration venues. It quickly tried to eat the evidence, causing a paper jam that spelled out "Just Kiss Already" in smudged toner. Chapter 12, The Form 777L Incident. The morning started innocently enough, with Junie arriving at Ever After Industries to find her office filled with floating paperwork that smelled suspiciously like wedding cake. The forms danced through the air in elaborate patterns that might have been choreographed to the wedding march, though the building insisted it was standard document circulation. Just some routine interdimensional paperwork, Malachi explained, his horns glowing a nervous pink as he attempted to catch one particularly enthusiastic form that kept trying to arrange itself into a heart shape. His cardigan today featured tiny embroidered scenes that flickered between professional meetings and what looked suspiciously like wedding preparations, though the thread quickly unraveled itself whenever caught. Junie plucked one of the floating forms from the air, raising an eyebrow at the header. Form 777L, Declaration of Eternal Partnership Intent, with optional celestial infernal benefits package. Oh dear, Malachi's horns shifted to an alarming shade of fuchsia. That's not supposed to be in general circulation. It's meant to be filed only after proper romantic progression protocols have been. The vending machine chimed excitedly, today's special accidental engagement celebration snacks, no refunds. We're not engaged, Junie protested, causing several nearby paper clips to form themselves into tiny wedding bells before quickly straightening with embarrassed efficiency. The accounting ghost's spreadsheet materialized through the ceiling, numbers swirling like confetti. Equals if form underscore 777L equals filed then ELSE. Barry the Fox skittered past, his ever-expanding notebook now requiring its own enchanted filing cabinet with a heart-shaped lock. He transformed just long enough to announce, "The Celestial Infernal Wedding Planning Committee, the Standard Forms Processing Department, would like to know your preferences regarding divine catering options." A string of pixels emojis floated by on gossamer threads of code, followed by accidental_proposal, X running. Marina's voice drifted through the ventilation system, singing what she claimed was a standard bureaucratic process song, but sounded suspiciously like Chapel of Love remixed with printer noises. "This is ridiculous," Junie declared, though her latent powers betrayed her by causing nearby plants to sprout tiny bouquets. "We haven't even discussed." "Actually," Malachi coughed, his customer service training battling with obvious nervousness. "According to supernatural workplace regulations, the mere presence of Form 777L in a shared office space constitutes a preliminary intention to." He was interrupted by Theodore Grimsworth materializing in a shower of sparkles that formed suspicious heart shapes. "Ah, I see the interdimensional paperwork has begun processing itself. How fortuitous." His 7 eyebrows arranged themselves into what might have been innocent surprise, but looked more like triumphant matchmaking success. The floating forms created a paper cyclone around Junie's desk, their edges gilded with what looked suspiciously like celestial infernal binding magic. A particularly enthusiastic document attempted to crown her with a makeshift paper tiara before she swatted it away. "This is clearly some kind of clerical error," Junie insisted, though her voice caused nearby office supplies to burst into what was definitely the wedding march, played entirely through the medium of staplers and rubber bands. Malachi's horns cycled through various shades of nervous rose gold as he attempted to catch the runaway forms. His cardigan's embroidery had given up all pretense of professionalism, now displaying tiny animated scenes of wedding preparations complete with microscopic confetti. "Well, technically speaking," he coughed, customer service training battling with obvious fluster. "According to the Interdimensional Bureaucratic Code, Section 13.4, the presence of Form 777L in a shared magical workspace does constitute a preliminary intent to get married?" Junie squeaked, causing several nearby plants to spontaneously bloom into miniature wedding bouquets. The vending machine chimed helpfully, "Today's special betrothal bliss, now with extra destiny." "Perhaps we should discuss this in a more private setting," Malachi suggested, just as the building decided to transform their office into what it claimed was a standard meeting space, but looked remarkably like a chapel anteroom. Barry the Fox darted past, his notebook now expanded into a full wedding planner bound in what appeared to be ethically sourced dragon leather. He transformed just long enough to ask, "Thoughts on celestial infernal fusion cuisine?" "The cherubs are excellent with appetizers, and the demon sous chefs do wonderful things with flame-grilled entrees." The accounting ghost's latest spreadsheet sparkled overhead, equals wedding_budget infinity, inevitable_destiny. "We haven't agreed to anything," Junie protested, though her latent powers betrayed her by causing nearby paperclips to form themselves into tiny wedding rings. A string of pixels emojis floated by, followed by wedding_planning X initializing. Marina's voice drifted through the ventilation system, now performing what she claimed was a standard office anthem, but sounded suspiciously like a medley of romantic ballads accompanied by printer percussion. Theodore Grimsworth materialized again, his 7 eyebrows arranged in what might have been professional interest but looked more like wedding planner enthusiasm. "I see the forms are processing themselves quite efficiently. The Celestial Infernal Union Department will be pleased." "The what department?" Junie blinked, watching as her coffee mug performed an elaborate courtship dance around Malachi's. "A standard administrative division," Grimsworth coughed, while his eyebrows formed unmistakable heart shapes. "Though they do occasionally handle supernatural matrimonial affairs. Purely as a bureaucratic courtesy." The photocopier whirred to life unprompted, producing what appeared to be save-the-date cards disguised as routine memos. Each one sparkled with interdimensional glitter and smelled faintly of destiny. "This is getting out of hand," Junie muttered, though she couldn't help noticing how the afternoon light caught Malachi's horns just so, creating a halo effect that the building's architecture definitely enhanced on purpose. Malachi adjusted his tie nervously, causing several nearby sticky notes to swoon. "Perhaps we should focus on the proper procedural response to accidental Form 777L activation." "Is there a form for that?" Junie asked hopefully. "Oh yes," Malachi brightened, his horns glowing with customer service enthusiasm. "Form 888D, Response to Inadvertent Eternal Partnership Documentation. Though it does require both parties to state their true feelings under oath to prevent any miscommunication about." He stopped abruptly, horns flushing pink as their eyes met. The building seized this moment to adjust its lighting to maximum romance, while the office supplies orchestra struck up what they claimed was standard background music but was clearly, "Here Comes the Bride." "Oh, just kiss already." Marina's voice trilled from somewhere in the ventilation system, setting off a chain reaction of romantic office supply choreography. The vending machine began dispensing what it called moment of truth mints, while the accounting ghost's spreadsheets calculated the probability of imminent romance with increasingly complex formulae. And somewhere in the narrative space between accidental paperwork and destiny, Junie found herself wondering if perhaps Form 777L wasn't such a clerical error after all. The afternoon sun painted golden stripes across Form 777L, making the celestial infernal binding magic shimmer like captured starlight. Junie watched a particularly determined paperclip attempt to fold itself into a ring for the third time, its metallic surface reflecting tiny rainbow hearts that it tried to pass off as standard office refraction. So she began carefully, her voice causing nearby sticky notes to vibrate with anticipation. "Hypothetically speaking, if someone wanted to properly file this form." Malachi's horns blazed sunrise pink, casting rose-gold shadows that the building's architecture eagerly amplified. His cardigan's embroidery froze mid-scene, tiny thread figures holding their breath along with the rest of the office. Hypothetically, he cleared his throat, customer service training warring with obvious hope, one would need to complete sections A through Z, with particular attention to subsection Eternal Partnership Intentions and the optional rider regarding interdimensional healthcare benefits. The vending machine hummed what sounded suspiciously like the wedding march, today's special, hypothetical happiness with destiny sprinkles. "And there's no way to just file this accidentally?" Junie asked, watching as her enchanted pen danced eagerly across the form, filling in their names in shimmering ink before she could stop it. "Oh no," Malachi's horns shifted to a knowing violet. "Form 777L requires genuine intent from both parties. It's enchanted to detect any attempt at bureaucratic manipulation. Even the office's most determined shipping attempts couldn't activate it without." He trailed off as realization dawned, matched by the building's strategic deployment of sunset-hued lighting. The accounting ghost's spreadsheet sparkled overhead, equals if mutual_love equals true then ELSE. Barry the Fox skittered past, his wedding planner notebook now sprouting gold filigree and what appeared to be tiny dimensional pockets for extra planning space. He transformed just long enough to whisper, "The cherubs are on standby for aerial flower petal distribution," before darting away to coordinate with what looked like a committee of origami doves. "So what you're saying," Junie continued, trying to ignore the way her coffee mug was performing an elaborate proposal dance around Malachi's, "is that for this form to activate, there would need to be genuine romantic intent," Malachi finished softly, his horns creating a gentle aurora borealis that the building's surfaces reflected in heart-shaped patterns. "From both parties." Marina's voice drifted through the ventilation system, hitting notes that made the dimensional barriers vibrate with romantic possibility. "Love is like properly filed paperwork, it brings two forms together." "I suppose," Junie found herself saying as nearby plants sprouted tiny wedding bells that they quickly tried to disguise as ordinary flowers, "we should make sure all the proper procedures are followed." Malachi's cardigan burst into a display of miniature fireworks, tiny embroidered figures throwing rice that sparkled with actual magic. "For bureaucratic accuracy," he agreed, his horns glowing like sunset through stained glass. Purely professional, Junie nodded, though her latent powers caused several filing cabinets to start humming the bridal chorus. A string of pixels emojis exploded overhead like digital confetti, followed by love_confirmation X, successfully executed. The office supplies orchestra, no longer bothering to maintain any pretense of subtlety, struck up a triumphant rendition of At Last, performed entirely through the medium of three-hole punchers and rubber bands. And in that moment, surrounded by celebrating office supplies and the combined forces of celestial infernal bureaucracy, Junie realized that sometimes the best kind of paperwork was the kind that made your heart flutter like enchanted butterfly memos. Well then, she smiled, reaching for Malachi's hand as Form 777L glowed with approved destiny, I suppose we should start filling out those benefits forms. The vending machine dispensed champagne-flavored joy in paper cups. Congratulations, love wins, no exchanges or refunds. The office erupted into barely contained magical celebration, as Form 777L glowed with approved destiny. Paper clips joined hands, or rather joined metal loops, to perform an elaborate aerial dance, while sticky notes folded themselves into confetti that smelled like wedding cake and bureaucratic triumph. I can't believe this is happening, Junie laughed, watching as her enchanted pen did backflips of joy across her desk, leaving trails of iridescent ink that formed tiny hearts before dissolving into more professional patterns. All because of some accidentally on-purpose paperwork. Malachi's horns created a light show to rival the aurora borealis, casting rose-gold shadows that the building's architecture eagerly amplified into romantic spotlights. His cardigan had given up all pretense of professional embroidery, now displaying a continuous loop of their greatest hits, from that first summoning to their current moment of form-filed love. Actually, he coughed, customer service training battling with obvious delight. According to the Interdimensional Romance Registry, Section 7.2, Paragraph C, our partnership was technically predestined. The paperwork just made it official. The vending machine chimed in agreement, today's special bureaucratic bliss with extra fate. Barry the Fox darted past, his wedding planner notebook now sprouting dimensional pockets filled with what looked like samples of celestial infernal cake flavors. The cherubs are suggesting divine chocolate destiny, with hellishly good vanilla filling. The accounting ghost's spreadsheet sparkled overhead, calculating their happiness quotient in complex mathematical formulas that somehow formed heart shapes. Equals love caret infinity paperwork underscore efficiency. Marina's voice drifted through the ventilation system, hitting notes that made reality shimmer, two forms becoming one, a merger of hearts and proper documentation. Perhaps, Junie suggested, as nearby plants sprouted tiny wedding bells that they didn't even bother trying to disguise anymore, we should take a moment to process this? But the office had other ideas. Theodore Grimsworth materialized in a shower of sparkles, his 7 eyebrows arranged in what was definitely celebratory formation. Ah, excellent. The Celestial Infernal Union Department has already approved your benefits package. Though they do need to know your preference regarding dimensional honeymoon locations. We haven't even, Junie started, but was interrupted by a cascade of interdimensional travel brochures disguised as routine memos, each one showcasing paradisiacal realms with suspiciously romantic lighting. The photocopier whirred to life, producing save-the-date cards that it claimed were standard administrative notifications. Each one sparkled with destiny and smelled faintly of forever. A string of pixels emojis exploded overhead, followed by wedding_planning X, priority status. You know, Malachi murmured, his horns creating an intimate spotlight that the building definitely enhanced on purpose, we could always elope to the interdimensional documentation department. I hear their express filing service is quite efficient. The office supplies gasped collectively, then tried to pretend they were just releasing excess ink. Don't you dare. Barry transformed just long enough to clutch his wedding planner protectively. I've already coordinated with the Celestial Choir and the Demon Jazz Band for the reception. The vending machine rattled with concern, warning elopement detected, emotional support snacks dispatched. Junie couldn't help laughing, as the entire office descended into loving chaos. Her coffee mug performed an elaborate victory dance around Malachi's, while nearby filing cabinets hummed what sounded suspiciously like, "Here Comes the Bride," in perfect four-part harmony. "Well," she smiled, reaching for Malachi's hand as Form 777L pulsed with approved destiny, "I suppose we should at least let them plan the party. After all, they've been shipping us since day one." The office collectively beamed, even the ceiling tiles arranging themselves into heart patterns that they didn't bother trying to pass off as standard geometric designs anymore. And somewhere in the space between bureaucracy and magic, Destiny smiled and filed its forms in triplicate. Chapter 13: The Supernatural Stress Test. The morning after Form 777L made their engagement officially official, with proper interdimensional notarization, Junie arrived at Ever After Industries to find the building had redecorated itself in what it claimed were celebratory yet professional colors. Every surface sparkled with barely contained joy, and even the elevator buttons had arranged themselves into heart shapes. "We have an actual crisis to deal with," Junie announced to the office at large, waving a memo that shimmered with ominous bureaucratic energy. "The Celestial Infernal Oversight Committee is conducting a surprise audit of all cross-realm relationships." Malachi materialized beside her, his horns glowing with concerned lavender light. Today's cardigan featured tiny embroidered scenes of their romance, though the thread kept trying to fast forward to the wedding before he tugged it back to more professional timeframes. "According to Protocol 13B," he noted, pulling out his brimstone tablet, "all supernatural partnerships must demonstrate practical magical compatibility during times of workplace stress." The vending machine hummed nervously, "Today's special, crisis management mints with anxiety absorption." Barry the Fox skittered past, his wedding planner temporarily transformed into a crisis management binder, though it still sparkled suspiciously. He transformed just long enough to announce, "The auditors are starting in the basement and working their way up. They're testing every interdimensional coupling for genuine magical resonance." The accounting ghost's spreadsheet materialized overhead, calculating their chances, equals if love greater than bureaucracy, then ELSE. "But we haven't even practiced combining our powers," Junie protested, causing several nearby plants to wilt with anxiety before Malachi's emotional support aura perked them back up. A string of pixels emojis floated by, followed by magical _synergy X loading. Morena's voice drifted through the ventilation system, now performing what she claimed was a standard crisis response song, but sounded suspiciously like "The Power of Love" remixed with emergency alarm tones. "Perhaps," Malachi suggested, his customer service training kicking in as his horns shifted to problem-solving gold, "we should focus on our natural magical compatibility? Your emotion-based telekinesis, combined with my emotional support abilities." Before he could finish, the building trembled as the auditor's power reached the second floor. Through the windows, they could see bursts of light, as other supernatural couples demonstrated their magical synergy. "What if we fail?" Junie whispered, her anxiety causing several paperclips to tie themselves into nervous knots. The vending machine dispensed comfort snacks unprompted, emergency emotional support cookies now with extra courage. The auditor's magic crackled up through the building like supernatural static electricity, making the lights flicker between celestial gold and infernal crimson. Junie's desk rattled nervously as her anxiety-induced telekinesis kicked in, causing several pens to perform an impromptu stress dance across her paperwork. "We just need to stay calm," Malachi soothed, though his horns betrayed his own nervousness by cycling through various shades of worried pastels. His cardigan's embroidery had shifted into crisis mode, tiny figures demonstrating proper magical emergency protocols, while occasionally sneaking in wedding planning details. "Calm?" Junie squeaked, as her powers made a stapler do backflips. "The most powerful bureaucrats, in multiple dimensions, are about to test our magical compatibility, and we haven't even coordinated our coffee breaks properly." The vending machine dispensed another round of courage cookies, emergency special crisis management confections, now with added destiny. Barry the Fox darted past, his crisis management binder sprouting new tabs labeled Emergency Romance Verification and Magical Synergy Statistics. He transformed just long enough to report, "They're testing everyone." The vampire from accounting and his ghost girlfriend had to demonstrate necromantic synchronization. "How did that go?" Junie asked, dreading the answer. Barry's tail drooped. "Let's just say we need a new photocopier. The old one got possessed." The accounting ghost's latest calculations sparkled overhead with nervous energy. Equals panic_mode max, love_coefficient. A string of pixels emojis flashed by like warning lights, followed by relationship_testing X imminent. Morena's voice drifted through the ventilation system, hitting notes that made reality hiccup. "When the auditors come calling, true love's magic must be falling." "Perhaps we should practice?" Malachi suggested, his horns creating a soft practice space glow. "Your emotion-based powers, combined with my ability to process feelings, could create a unique magical resonance." Before Junie could respond, the building shuddered as another couple failed their compatibility test. Through the windows, they watched a werewolf from IT and his dryad partner being handed a stack of forms labeled Magical Relationship Reassessment, please file in triplicate. "Oh no," Junie moaned, her distress causing nearby office supplies to orbit her head like anxious satellites. "We're doomed. We can't even coordinate our coffee breaks without the mugs doing a romantic tango." Actually, Malachi brightened, his customer service training sparking an idea. "Maybe that's exactly what we need to focus on. Our magic has always been somewhat enthusiastic about our relationship." The building creaked in agreement, its walls shifting slightly pinker despite the crisis atmosphere. "You mean," Junie began, watching as her anxiety made paperclips form themselves into worry beads, "we should just be ourselves?" "Complete with magical mishaps and all," Malachi nodded, his horns warming to a hopeful gold. After all, Form 777L wouldn't have activated without genuine magical compatibility. The vending machine chimed supportively, "Today's crisis special, authentic love potions, no artificial enhancement needed." Just then, Theodore Grimsworth materialized, his 7 eyebrows arranged in emergency formation. "They're nearly here. The auditors expect a demonstration of combined magical ability that proves your supernatural synchronization." "Right," Junie took a deep breath, reaching for Malachi's hand. "Ready to show them how emotional support and anxiety-induced telekinesis can work together?" Malachi's cardigan sparkled with determination, its tiny embroidered scenes now showing their greatest magical mishaps reimagined as strategic synergy. "Ready when you are, love." The office supplies orchestra struck up what they claimed was standard crisis music, but sounded suspiciously like the final countdown, performed entirely through the medium of 3-hole punchers and rubber bands. And as the auditors' power reached their floor, Junie and Malachi prepared to show the Celestial Infernal Oversight Committee exactly what happened when emotional support met anxiety-induced magic, with a healthy dose of destiny thrown in for good measure. The auditor's magic crackled through the building like supernatural static, making the lights flicker between heavenly gold and hellish crimson. Junie's collection of enchanted sticky notes fluttered anxiously as footsteps echoed up the stairwell, accompanied by the unmistakable sound of bureaucratic clipboard scratching. "Remember," Malachi whispered, his horns creating a gentle aurora of calming colors that made the office supplies sigh dreamily, "we just need to be ourselves. Our magically chaotic, paperwork filing selves." The door burst open in a shower of celestial infernal sparks to reveal 2 figures who somehow managed to look both impossibly ancient and impeccably modern. The heavenly auditor, Celestia Brightworth, gleamed with such bureaucratic perfection that looking directly at her clipboard risked temporary blindness. Her infernal counterpart, Grim Darkweather, wore a suit that appeared to be tailored from solidified shadows and judgmental sighs. "Next couple for compatibility assessment," Celestia announced in a voice like perfectly filed paperwork. Her golden pen hovered expectantly over a form that radiated destiny-altering power. Junie's anxiety made several nearby filing cabinets do an impromptu tap dance. That would be us, she squeaked, causing her coffee mug to perform nervous pirouettes. Ah yes, Grim consulted his clipboard, which smoked ominously. The emotional support demon, and the human with undiagnosed magical abilities. Rather unconventional. The vending machine hummed defensively. Today's special, love knows no dimensional boundaries, now with extra validation. Perhaps a demonstration of your combined magical abilities? Celestia suggested, her perfect eyebrows arching with professional skepticism. Junie felt Malachi's hand squeeze hers reassuringly, his horns glowing with warm confidence that made her heart flutter, and consequently caused several paper clips to form themselves into tiny hearts before quickly pretending to be ordinary office supplies. Well, Junie began, drawing on every ounce of HR manager courage she possessed, our magic tends to work best when we're just being ourselves. A crash from the break room interrupted her explanation. The coffee machine, apparently sensing the romantic tension, had begun dispensing heart-shaped lattes that sang love songs in perfect harmony. Several staplers joined in as backup singers, while rubber bands stretched themselves into instrumental accompaniment. I see, Grim noted dryly, making a mark on his smoking clipboard. And this sort of magical enthusiasm is typical? Malachi's cardigan betrayed their attempt at professional composure by embroidering itself with tiny scenes of their greatest magical mishaps, each one sparkling with unmistakable affection. Our combined powers do tend toward the expressively romantic, he admitted, customer service training battling with obvious pride. The accounting ghost's latest calculations shimmered overhead. Equals love_chaos magical_synergy infinity. Perhaps, Celestia suggested, her perfect posture radiating celestial judgment, a more controlled demonstration? Junie nodded, took a deep breath, and promptly caused every object in the office to float and transform into desserts, including, unfortunately, the auditor's clipboards, which became a creme brulee and a devil's food cake respectively. Oh dear, Malachi murmured, his horns cycling through embarrassed pastels as he instinctively absorbed the wave of anxiety that followed. This resulted in him sneezing a cloud of butterflies that arranged themselves into the words, "Love conquers all paperwork." The auditors exchanged looks that somehow managed to be both professionally neutral and deeply amused. Well, Celestia began, trying to maintain her celestial composure while holding a clipboard that kept trying to serve itself, this is certainly unique, Grim finished, watching as his demonic documentation attempted to add chocolate sprinkles to itself. The office supplies orchestra, sensing a moment of bureaucratic uncertainty, launched into what they claimed was standard assessment music, but sounded suspiciously like "Love is All You Need," performed entirely through the medium of office equipment. Mary's voice drifted through the ventilation system, hitting notes that made reality ripple, when magic meets emotion, causing sweet bureaucratic commotion. You see, Junie explained as her anxiety caused several nearby plants to sprout flowers that looked suspiciously like tiny wedding bells. Our magic works best when we're not trying to force it into standard protocols. Malachi nodded, his horns creating a soft glow that turned the dessert-transformed office into something resembling a romantic cafe. We specialize in unconventional magical synergy, with a side of proper documentation. The auditors stood amid the magically transformed office-turned patisserie, their expressions shifting between bureaucratic concern and poorly concealed amusement. A nearby stapler, now a chocolate eclair, continued to attempt to fasten papers together with dollops of cream. While your magical synergy is unique, Celestia began, her perfect posture somewhat undermined by the fact that her clipboard kept trying to serve itself with a tiny dessert fork, it does demonstrate a certain chaotic harmony, Grim supplied, watching as his shadow suit collected a dusting of powdered sugar. Though perhaps not quite what the standard protocols had in mind. Junie's anxiety caused several cupcakes, formerly stress balls, to perform an elaborate aerial ballet. We can try again, she offered, though her voice made the chocolate truffles, previously paper clips, quiver with nervous energy. Malachi's horns shifted to a soothing lavender, as he automatically absorbed her stress, resulting in him hiccuping rainbow bubbles that contained tiny scenes of their most memorable magical mishaps. His cardigan, apparently feeling nostalgic, began playing a greatest hits montage of their relationship through its embroidery. "You see," he explained, customer service voice only slightly strained as he tried to prevent a cream puff from filing itself, "our magical compatibility tends toward the enthusiastically romantic." The vending machine chimed supportively, "Today's special bureaucracy ALA mode, with a side of destiny." Barry the Fox darted between the desserts, his crisis management binder now a particularly elaborate tiramisu that still somehow maintained perfect organizational tabs. He transformed just long enough to add, "Their combined chaos quotient is off the charts." In a good way, before returning to vulpine form to chase after a rolling macaron. The accounting ghost's calculations sparkled through the sugar-dusted air. Equals SQRT love underscore chaos, magical underscore mishaps equals perfect underscore match. "And this sort of thing happens regularly?" Celestia inquired, dodging a floating creme brulee that seemed determined to caramelize her halo. "Only when they're trying to be professional," Marina's voice drifted through the ventilation system, accompanied by what sounded like a dessert-themed love song performed by enchanted butter cookies. Pixels emojis floated by on threads of spun sugar, followed by sweet underscore love X running perfectly. The auditors exchanged another look, this one containing volumes of interdimensional bureaucratic communication. Grimm consulted his cakeified clipboard, which had helpfully rearranged its chocolate layers to display their assessment metrics. "Well," he began, brushing a bit of frosting from his shadow suit, "according to Section 13, Paragraph C of the Supernatural Partnership Guidelines, all magical couples must demonstrate genuine compatibility," Celestia continued, her perfect voice carrying just a hint of whimsy. "Preferably through controlled demonstration of combined abilities," Grimm added. "With proper documentation," they finished in unison. Junie held her breath, causing several eclairs to puff up nervously. Malachi's horns cycled through anxious pastels, as his cardigan's embroidery froze mid-scene, tiny figures waiting to see their fate. The auditors studied their dessert-transformed documentation for a moment that stretched like pulled taffy. Finally, Celestia's clipboard, now a particularly elegant mille-feuille, rearranged its layers to display their verdict. "Congratulations," she announced, a smile cracking her perfect bureaucratic facade. "You've passed." The office erupted in a celebration of magical proportions. The desserts performed an impromptu conga line, led by what had previously been Theodore Grimsworth's 7 eyebrows and was now a troupe of dancing macarons. The office supplies orchestra struck up a triumphant rendition of Sweet Victory, performed entirely through the medium of sugar-glazed instruments. The office's celebratory chaos tasted like buttercream and victory, with a hint of interdimensional paperwork. Junie watched in amazement as desserts that had once been ordinary office supplies performed increasingly elaborate dance numbers, led by a particularly enthusiastic eclair that had previously been her stapler. "We should probably turn everything back," she mused, though her relief made several nearby cupcakes perform backflips of joy. "Before the quarterly reports get too delicious to file." Malachi's horns glowed with warm triumph as he attempted to choral a group of macarons that had started a conga line. His cardigan had given up all pretense of professional embroidery, now displaying a continuous loop of their greatest hits, from accidental summoning to successful audit, complete with tiny fireworks. According to Protocol 13B, he noted, customer service training somehow maintaining its grip despite his obvious delight. Magical transformations during official assessments must be reversed within 1 business day. Though there's a clause about keeping any particularly successful pastries for morale purposes. The vending machine chimed hopefully, "Today's special Victory Velvet Cake, now with extra validation." Barry the Fox darted between the celebrating sweets, his notebook somehow maintaining perfect organizational tabs, despite being transformed into a particularly elaborate tiramisu. He paused just long enough to transform and announce, "The Celestial Infernal Oversight Committee left a note," before chasing after a runaway rumball. The note, written on what appeared to be spun sugar paper, sparkled with official approval. To the Department of Unconventional Magical Partnerships Assessment of Junie Bloom and Malachi Goodfellow. Their combined magical resonance, while decidedly unique, demonstrates exceptional compatibility through synchronized chaos management, complementary emotional magical wavelengths, creative approach to interdimensional paperwork, impressive pastry transformation techniques, approval granted with honors, and a request for the recipe for those self-filing cream puffs. Signed Celestia Brightworth and Grim Darkweather Celestial Infernal Oversight Committee. The accounting ghosts' spreadsheet shimmered overhead, calculating their success metrics with frosting-flavored formulae, equals love_triumph ∞ dessert_ coefficient. We did it, Junie breathed, her joy causing several nearby truffles to perform a synchronized swimming routine in midair. We actually did it. Malachi pulled her close, his horns creating a spotlight effect that turned the sugar-dusted air into something magical. Was there ever any doubt? Our chaos has always been perfectly complementary. Marina's voice drifted through the ventilation system, hitting notes that made the desserts dance, when magic meets emotion causing sweet bureaucratic commotion. Pixels emojis floated by on threads of spun sugar, followed by victory_celebration X running sweetly. Theodore Grimsworth materialized amid the celebrating pastries, his 7 eyebrows having transformed into an assortment of elegant petite fours that somehow maintained their expressions of bureaucratic approval. Well done. Though perhaps we should restore the office to its original state before the Health and Safety Department notices we've turned all their regulation manuals into rainbow layer cakes. A nearby filing cabinet, now a towering croquembouche, creaked in agreement. Right, Junie nodded, concentrating on reversing her anxiety-induced transformations. Slowly, the desserts began morphing back into their original office supply forms, though several maintained a faint dusting of sugar and a tendency to hum victory marches. Malachi helped guide the transformation, his emotional support abilities ensuring each item returned to its proper form with minimal existential crisis. His horns created a gentle aurora that seemed to taste like happiness and proper documentation. The vending machine dispensed one final celebratory snack. Congratulations, love conquers all, especially bureaucracy. And as the last traces of magical pastry faded away, leaving behind an office that smelled faintly of victory and vanilla extract, Junie realized that sometimes the best kind of magic was the kind that didn't fit into any standard protocols, just like the best kind of love came with a healthy dose of chaos and proper paperwork. Well, she smiled, watching as her newly restored stapler attempted to organize papers into a heart shape. I suppose this means we can focus on planning the wedding? The office supplies collectively perked up, while Barry's notebook spontaneously sprouted several new tabs labeled Celestial Infernal Ceremony Planning and Interdimensional Catering Options. After all, they had paperwork to file, magic to manage, and a happily ever after to plan, with all the proper forms submitted in triplicate, of course. Chapter 14: The Interdimensional Proposal. The morning dew sparkled like tiny engagement rings across Ever After Industries' windows, each droplet catching the early light and transforming it into miniature rainbows that seemed to spell out destiny in prismatic Morse code. Junie arrived to find her office had transformed itself into what the building claimed was a standard workspace configuration, but looked suspiciously like a romantic garden pavilion. We really need to talk about professional boundaries, she told the architecture, though her voice held more fondness than frustration. Several nearby roses nodded in agreement before catching themselves and pretending to be ordinary office plants. Malachi materialized beside her desk, now wreathed in morning glories that insisted they were standard office decor, his horns creating a soft glow that made the dewdrops dance. Today's cardigan featured tiny embroidered scenes from their relationship, though the thread kept trying to skip ahead to future possibilities before he tugged it back to present moments. Actually, he began, his customer service training battling with obvious nervousness, I was hoping we could discuss something rather important. The vending machine hummed with anticipation, today's special, momentous occasion mints with destiny filling. Before he could continue, Barry the Fox skittered past, his ever-expanding wedding planner notebook now requiring its own pocket dimension for storage. He transformed just long enough to ask, "Has anyone seen the ring? The totally normal paperclip I was organizing," before darting away in a blur of vulpine efficiency. The accounting ghost's spreadsheet materialized overhead, calculations sparkling with barely contained excitement. Equals if, proposal equals imminent then ELSE. Ring? Junie blinked, watching as her coffee mug performed what looked suspiciously like a rehearsed celebration dance. What ring? Malachi's horns flushed pink as he reached into his pocket, producing what appeared to be a standard interdimensional form, but sparkled with unmistakable romantic potential. Form 999L, he explained, voice soft with emotion that made nearby office supplies sigh dreamily. Request for Eternal Partnership Ceremony Authorization. A string of pixels emojis floated by on gossamer threads of code, followed by proposal_sequence, X initializing. Marina's voice drifted through the ventilation system, hitting notes that made reality ripple with romantic possibility. When paperwork meets destiny and forms align just perfectly. The office seemed to hold its collective breath as Malachi dropped to one knee, his horns creating a spotlight effect that the building's architecture definitely enhanced on purpose. His cardigan's embroidery now showed tiny figures enacting the very scene they were creating, like a recursive loop of romantic documentation. "Junie Bloom," he began, customer service training giving way to pure emotion, "would you do me the honor of filing this form with me? In triplicate, with proper interdimensional notarization and optional celestial infernal benefits package?" Time seemed to pause, the very air sparkling with anticipation as Junie stared at Form 999L in Malachi's hands. The paper shimmered with otherworldly light, its official letterhead somehow managing to look both bureaucratically proper and hopelessly romantic. "This is," she breathed, causing several nearby plants to burst into premature celebration blooms before quickly tucking their petals away again. The office collectively leaned forward, even the ceiling tiles arranging themselves into an acoustic pattern optimized for capturing historic moments. Barry the fox had stopped mid-scurry, his tail frozen in an expectant curl. The accounting ghost's spreadsheet glowed with algorithmic anticipation, equals awaiting _response. Malachi's horns cycled through every shade of nervous hope as he knelt there, his cardigan's embroidery now showing tiny figures crossing their threads in anticipation. "I know it's not the most conventional proposal, but I thought given how we met." "Through accidentally summoned customer service?" Junie smiled, her voice making nearby paperclips twist themselves into tiny hearts. "Through perfectly filed destiny," Malachi corrected, his horns warming to a soft rose gold. "Even if the initial paperwork was somewhat unconventional." The vending machine hummed what sounded suspiciously like the wedding march. "Today's special, lifetime commitment confections, with eternal happiness guarantee." Marina's voice drifted through the ventilation system, hitting notes that made reality shimmer. "When forms align and hearts combine, bureaucracy divine." Junie felt her heart flutter, causing several nearby office supplies to perform an impromptu aerial ballet. Here was Malachi, her emotional support demon, offering her both his heart and proper documentation. And really, wasn't that the perfect metaphor for their entire relationship? "Yes," she whispered, then louder as her joy caused the building's architecture to ripple with delight. "Yes, I'll file forms with you forever." The office erupted in celebration. Paper clips formed themselves into wedding bells, rubber bands stretched into heart shapes, and even the most serious staplers abandoned their professional demeanor to dance with unbridled joy. Barry transformed mid-leap, scattering what appeared to be interdimensionally sourced confetti from his now expanded wedding planner. Malachi slipped a ring onto her finger, one that somehow managed to look both ethereally beautiful and properly documented, with tiny runes that probably constituted a legally binding contract in at least 3 realms. His horns created a light show that rivaled the aurora borealis, while his cardigan burst into an elaborate display of their greatest hits, from accidental summoning to this perfect moment. The accounting ghost's spreadsheet exploded into a shower of romantic calculations. Equals love _infinity happiness _coefficient. Pixels emojis swirled overhead like digital fireworks, followed by happily_ever_after X, launched successfully. Theodore Grimsworth materialized amid the chaos, his 7 eyebrows arranged in what might have been their most joyful formation yet. Excellent. The Celestial Infernal Union Department has already pre-approved your ceremony venue options. Though they do need to know your preference regarding dimensional overlap for the reception. Perhaps we could focus on enjoying the moment? Junie suggested, though her happiness caused several nearby filing cabinets to spontaneously play what sounded like Mendelssohn's Wedding March. Of course, Grimsworth nodded, while his eyebrows formed unmistakable heart shapes. Though if you could just initial these pre-ceremony forms. But Junie was too busy kissing Malachi to worry about paperwork. Their embrace sent waves of magical joy through the office, causing every enchanted object to express their happiness in increasingly creative ways. The photocopier began producing heart-shaped confetti. The water cooler dispensed what appeared to be liquid starlight, and even the most stoic office plants burst into bloom with flowers that looked suspiciously like tiny wedding bells. Because sometimes the most perfect moments came with both true love and proper documentation, especially when you were engaged to an emotional support demon who made every form feel like destiny. The vending machine summed it up perfectly. Congratulations, love wins, warranties included. The office's celebrations sparkled with interdimensional joy, each department contributing its own magical touch to the impromptu engagement party. Paper clips formed aerial acrobatic teams, performing elaborate routines that spelled out congratulations in various supernatural languages. The water cooler dispensed what it claimed was standard celebration hydration, but tasted suspiciously like liquid starlight with a hint of forever. Did the building just rearrange itself into a reception hall? Junie asked, watching as the walls shimmered and shifted, creating an elegant space that somehow maintained just enough office aesthetics to claim plausible deniability. Malachi's horns created dancing lights that matched the rhythm of his happiness, while his cardigan displayed a continuous loop of proposal highlights interspersed with future possibilities. According to the Interdimensional Architecture Guidelines, Section 7.3, buildings are allowed certain emotional expression allowances during significant life events. The vending machine chimed supportively, today's special engagement eclairs with prophecy filling. Barry the Fox darted between celebrating office supplies. His wedding planner now expanded to include several pocket dimensions organized by color scheme and magical resonance. He transformed just long enough to announce, the cherubs from upper management have already volunteered for aerial flower distribution, before disappearing into what appeared to be a spontaneously generated bridal boutique. The accounting ghost's spreadsheet sparkled overhead with complex calculations. Equals wedding_budget infinity dimensional_overlap_coefficient. Marina's voice drifted through the newly formed crystal chandeliers, hitting notes that made reality ripple with joy. When demon meets human through paperwork divine, their love story filed in triplicate sublime. Perhaps we should discuss venue options? Theodore Grimsworth materialized amid a shower of congratulatory sparkles, his 7 eyebrows arranged in what might have been their most festive formation yet. The Celestial Infernal Union Department has several openings in dimensions with particularly romantic atmospheric conditions. A string of pixels emojis floated by on gossamer threads of code, followed by wedding_planning X, priority status. Junie felt her happiness bubble over, causing several nearby orchids to spontaneously bloom into tiny replicas of potential wedding flowers. Each blossom seemed to be auditioning for the role of official ceremony flora, presenting their best colors and fragrances for consideration. We haven't even set a date, she laughed, though her joy made the ring on her finger pulse with warm magic that caused nearby office supplies to swoon romantically. According to Form 999L's timeline recommendations, Malachi consulted his brimstone tablet, which had decorated itself with tiny digital hearts. We have a window of optimal celestial infernal alignment coming up during the next full moon. The office supplies collectively sighed with dreamy efficiency, then tried to pretend they were just releasing excess ink. A paper airplane made from what appeared to be a wedding venue brochure landed on Junie's desk, unfolding to reveal Pixel's latest update, followed by Destiny_scheduling X. The celebration continued in this fashion, with each department contributing its own magical touch to the growing wedding plans. Even the most serious filing cabinets had abandoned their professional demeanor to hum various romantic ballads, their drawers opening and closing in perfect harmony. Because sometimes the best kind of happily ever after came with proper documentation, interdimensional approval, and an office full of supernatural shipping enthusiasts who'd been planning this moment since day one. The vending machine summed it up perfectly. Love, now serving eternity with complimentary benefits package. The celebration continued as the office transformed into what could only be described as an interdimensional wedding planning headquarters. Every surface sparkled with potential, and even the most serious filing cabinets had abandoned their professional demeanor to display holographic wedding mood boards. Perhaps we should start with the basics, Junie suggested, watching as her enchanted planner sprouted several new sections labeled Celestial Infernal Ceremony Logistics and Preventing Dimensional Collapse During Reception. Malachi's horns created a soft planning mode glow as he consulted his brimstone tablet, which had decorated itself with tiny digital wedding bells. According to the Supernatural Union guidelines, we'll need to file forms in at least 7 dimensions, coordinate with both upper and lower management, and ensure proper magical resonance alignment during the ceremony. The vending machine hummed helpfully, today's special wedding planning survival kit with stress-absorbing snacks. Barry the Fox darted between rapidly multiplying planning committees, his notebook now requiring its own zip code. He transformed just long enough to announce, the Demon Jazz Band wants to know if they can collaborate with the Celestial Choir for the reception music, before disappearing into what appeared to be a spontaneously generated bridal boutique. The accounting ghost's latest calculations sparkled overhead, equals wedding_budget infinity dimensional_overlap_coefficient. And then there's the matter of guest list management. Theodore Grimsworth materialized, his 7 eyebrows arranged in what might have been their most organized formation yet. We'll need to consider the proper ratio of celestial to infernal attendees to prevent any unfortunate dimensional rifts. Junie felt her anxiety spike, causing several nearby orchids to stress bloom into increasingly elaborate wedding arrangements. Malachi instinctively absorbed her nervous energy, resulting in him sneezing a cloud of butterflies that formed themselves into a surprisingly detailed seating chart. The office had become a whirlwind of wedding preparation, with each department contributing its own magical chaos to the planning process. Even the building itself seemed determined to help, constantly rearranging its architecture to showcase different potential ceremony layouts. As the day drew to a close, Junie and Malachi found themselves surrounded by a small mountain of wedding magazines, some from dimensions where paper was sentient, several dozen color swatches that changed hues based on emotional resonance, and what appeared to be an entire interdimensional catering menu. You know, Junie smiled, watching as her engagement ring caught the light and made nearby office supplies sigh dreamily, somehow I think this wedding is going to be perfectly us. Malachi's horns glowed with warm agreement as his cardigan displayed tiny scenes of their future celebration. Complete with proper documentation and just the right amount of chaos? The vending machine chimed knowingly, coming soon, happily ever after with warranties included. Chapter 15, Happily Ever After with Benefits. The morning of the wedding dawned with ethereal light that couldn't quite decide which dimension it belonged to, shifting between celestial gold and infernal crimson like nature's own disco ball. Ever After Industries had outdone itself, transforming into what it claimed was a standard ceremonial configuration, but looked more like a magical cathedral merged with the world's most romantic office space. Paper clips formed themselves into delicate archways, while rubber bands stretched into elegant garlands that hummed wedding marches in perfect harmony. Even the most serious filing cabinets had dressed up for the occasion, their drawers gleaming with polish that somehow managed to look both professional and festive. The dimensional overlap is holding steady, Barry announced, frantically checking his wedding planner while maintaining perfect vulpine composure. His tie, somehow even more immaculate than usual, had developed a pattern of tiny rings that it claimed were ceremonial geometric shapes. The accounting ghost spreadsheet sparkled overhead with final calculations. Equals happiness _ quotient max, love _ coefficient caret infinity. Junie stood in what had once been the break room, but was now a bridal suite that would make both heaven and hell jealous. Her dress, a masterpiece of interdimensional couture, seemed to exist in multiple planes of reality simultaneously, catching light from worlds no human had ever seen. The cherubs are in position, Morena trilled through the ventilation system, her voice making reality ripple with joy, and the Demon Jazz Quartet has promised to keep their solos under three-dimensional riffs. A string of pixels emojis floated by on gossamer threads of code, followed by ceremony _initialization X, loading. Meanwhile, in what had previously been the supply closet but was now a groom's preparation chamber that defied several laws of physics, Malachi adjusted his bow tie for the 1000th time. His horns glowed with nervous excitement, creating an aurora borealis effect that made his specially tailored tuxedo shimmer between planes of existence. Remember, Theodore Grimsworth materialized to remind him, 7 eyebrows arranged in their most formal configuration. The vows must be spoken in precise synchronization with the interdimensional harmonics, or we risk turning all the office supplies into eternal love sonnets. That wouldn't be so bad, a nearby stapler muttered dreamily. The vending machine hummed the wedding march, today's special, eternal bliss, with complimentary benefits package. As the ceremony began, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The office supplies orchestra struck up a melody that somehow managed to be both professionally appropriate and hopelessly romantic. Junie walked down an aisle lined with flowers that bloomed in colors from dimensions yet unnamed, each petal catching light from multiple worlds. Malachi waited at the altar, previously the photocopier, now transformed into something magnificently ceremonial, while maintaining its ability to reproduce forms in triplicate. His horns created a spotlight effect that the building's architecture enhanced perfectly, while his cardigan, specially designed for the occasion, displayed their entire love story in tiny animated scenes. The ceremony itself was a perfect blend of bureaucratic precision and pure magic. Their vows, filed in triplicate with proper interdimensional notarization, somehow managed to make even the most hardened corporate demons cry tears of joy, which were quickly collected by Barry for proper emotional documentation. By the power vested in me by both upper and lower management, Theodore Grimsworth proclaimed, his eyebrows forming heart shapes that he didn't even try to disguise anymore, and in accordance with all properly filed paperwork, I now pronounce you eternally partnered with full benefits. Their kiss sent waves of magical joy through multiple dimensions, causing every enchanted object in the office to express their happiness in increasingly creative ways. The photocopier produced heart-shaped confetti, the water cooler dispensed what appeared to be liquid starlight, and even the most stoic office plants burst into bloom with flowers that looked suspiciously like tiny wedding bells. The reception that followed existed in several dimensions simultaneously, with guests floating between planes of reality as easily as they moved between dance floor and buffet. The Demon Jazz Band collaborated with the Celestial Choir to create music that made reality itself swing, while Barry the Fox coordinated it all with clipboard-wielding precision, even in vulpine form. And through it all, Junie and Malachi danced, their love-making office supplies sigh and dimensional barriers ripple with joy. Because sometimes the best kind of happily ever after comes with proper documentation, interdimensional approval, and an office full of supernatural beings who ship you with bureaucratic enthusiasm. The vending machine summed it up perfectly, dispensing its final celebratory snack. Congratulations, love conquers all, especially paperwork. As the interdimensional reception wound down, reality settling back into its usual number of dimensions, Junie and Malachi prepared for their departure. The office had gathered to see them off, each department contributing its own magical touch to their send-off. Your honeymoon portals are ready, Barry announced, consulting his now legendary planning notebook while maintaining perfect vulpine composure. First stop, the celestial seafront, where the waves exist in multiple timelines simultaneously. Then the infernal hot springs, where the waters are heated by perfectly regulated bureaucratic friction. The accounting ghost's final calculations sparkled overhead. Equals honeymoon underscore itinerary perfect, romance underscore coefficient caret infinity. Junie's travel outfit, designed by a committee of fashion-forward office supplies, shimmered between planes of existence, while Malachi's going-away cardigan displayed tiny animated scenes of their upcoming adventures. His horns glowed with honeymoon anticipation, creating a soft aurora that made even the most serious filing cabinets sigh romantically. Don't forget your interdimensional travel documentation, Theodore Grimsworth materialized to remind them, his 7 eyebrows arranged in what might have been their most emotional formation yet. And remember, according to Section 13.4 of the Supernatural Union Guidelines, newlyweds are entitled to experience temporal dilation during their honeymoon, making every moment last approximately 1.7 times longer than standard reality. The vending machine dispensed one final gift: Bon Voyage travel snacks with eternal happiness guarantee. Marina's voice drifted through the air, hitting notes that made reality ripple with farewell joy, when love takes flight through dimensions bright. Ready? Malachi asked softly, his horns creating a spotlight that the building's architecture enhanced with perfect romantic timing. Junie squeezed his hand, causing nearby office supplies to form themselves into a heart-shaped honor guard. Ready. As they stepped through the portal, their love making reality itself smile, the office burst into one final celebration. Paper clips formed aerial acrobatic teams, rubber bands stretched into celebratory arches, and even the most professional staplers abandoned their dignity to dance with joy. A string of Pixel's final emojis floated by, followed by happily _ever _after X, successfully launched. Because sometimes the best kind of love story starts with accidental summoning, involves extensive paperwork, and ends with an office full of supernatural beings crying tears of joy, which Barry carefully collected and filed under Emotional Documentation, Eternal Partnership Division. The vending machine had the last word, dispensing one final message that sparkled with interdimensional truth. Love, now serving forever with full benefits package. Thank you for listening. Please visit me at wynnvalentine.com to stay up to date. Please subscribe, leave a comment, and review on Amazon.